introduction to TestNG. This is in follow up to our Java classes, right? So we've done some Java, and now we are following up on libraries and frameworks. All right. So that is what TestNG comes into the picture. Quickly give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. If the screen is visible, quickly give me a thumbs up in the live chat. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay. So introduction, right? Before we begin, I'll quickly tell you what exactly is a framework, because see, TestNG is a framework. All right. So far, you've done Java and you've created classes, you've created a piece of program. Now comes the concept of a framework. Okay. What is a framework? See, a framework is basically like a skeleton. Okay. It's like some pieces of core functionalities already provided to you so that you don't have to do everything from the scratch. Okay, so they provide you some core pieces of functionalities, and that is the skeleton, right? Like for testing, the skeletal part that you need, right? That is the basics. Okay, so for example, let's say you're building a house, right? Imagine you are building a house from scratch. That is pretty massive and involves design, planning, material gathering, not to mention the countless hours devoted to the build itself. Okay, but you are not the first person to be building this situation, right? You're not the first person to build a house like this, right? In the image that you can see, you're not the first person. Someone else might have already done that earlier. Okay, and they might have created a blueprint or a structure which you can then utilize. Okay, so that helps you save a lot of time because you have some core things already set up for you. That is the same thing for a framework, right? So when we are doing testing, okay, a framework is what? A framework is a set of core functionalities already created for us that we can use. Okay, so that is the essence of a framework. Now we have, what we are doing is TestNG, which is a framework in Java. Okay, and that framework is specifically for software testing, right? We'll discuss about others, but right now we'll do TestNG only. Okay, so you could, for example, in this house, right, you could use publicly available blueprints to base your own design around. Look for fabricated materials such as roofing, joists, or fully framed walls, or even consider modular structures that only require finishing touches. Okay, the point is, building everything from scratch sounds nice in theory, right? This is the basic point, right? So you might feel that why shouldn't I create everything from the scratch? Okay, that might sound nice in theory, but realistically or in practical scenarios, that is not a good idea, right? It's not a good approach when you want to, let's say you want to build an application or a website, right? You need to do testing like we saw earlier in Agile, right? Agile methodology, when we use it, you have to do it very fast. Like you do not have a lot of time. Okay, so using frameworks is always a better approach and helps you to keep everything systematically. Okay, and since everyone in the team knows, so everyone is collaborating and they all know how to work on it, right? So it can be costly, frustrating, and time consuming. At the end of the day, you just need a functional house so you can move on with your life. Similarly, in software testing, a framework works the same way. Someone else has already built out the core elements of the testing software, right? This is the point. Okay, someone else has built the core element of the software testing and made it available for anyone else to download and further customize for their own needs. So we'll be learning about the TestNG framework and what it is, how it is utilized by teams, and to increase the test coverage. Okay, what are the learning objectives for this lesson? We will be defining the features and concepts that are unique to the TestNG framework. We'll describe what tools and the software, how you can actually use the TestNG framework, right? What software, where do you write your code, right? What can you use, and how do you write TestNG? Okay, and we'll prepare a basic TestNG script using the best practices. We'll write a basic script of TestNG, and that you'll see. Okay, so that is about framework, right? Is that clear, right? Is that clear? Give me a thumbs up in the live chat if you've understood what a framework is. Not exactly TestNG, but a framework in general. Okay, it's not that framework is only there in software testing. No, when you are a developer, right? Even if you're developing a software, you have frameworks. Okay, there are multiple frameworks which help all the developers, that they already know that okay, these pieces are there in the framework, and we need, let's say, the login functionality is separate, right? The APIs are separate, right? Your backend or database connection is separate, right? Everything is put together by the framework. Okay, now you need to write the specific codes in those parts, right? So that is what a framework is. Okay, and same thing in our software testing. right? You have a framework and you can work on it, right? It's already pre-built. You have a lot of frameworks like JUnit, you have NUnit, right? And TestNG is what we're going to cover. All right. So before we move into TestNG, is that concept clear? What exactly is a framework? Or is there any questions about what a framework is? Because TestNG is an example of a framework, right? Before that, you should know what a framework is. Okay. You want to say thumbs up if you understand what a framework is, right? Yeah. Yeah. Give me in the live chat, right? Give me a thumbs up if you've understood what a framework is, because TestNG is an example of a framework, right? So understand it as a skeleton, right? It's a skeleton of the core functionalities. Does it make sense? Theodora gives a thumbs up, right? Others. Francisco gives a thumbs up, right? Valentina says raw house, right? Exactly, Valentina. Absolutely, right? Great analogy, right? It's like a raw house, right? Let's say there are three rooms have been set on the ground floor, right? Two rooms have been set on the first floor, and the structure is built, right? The basic structure is built. Now, inside the rooms, you can do your customizations. Okay, so one room is separate. Now, there's a room over there. Now, you can do the customization inside it as per your choice. Okay, but the structure remains, right? That's the structure. All right, that is what a framework is. Okay, Susan gives a thumbs up, right? Great, awesome, awesome. Francisco gives a thumbs up. Perfect, awesome. All right, okay. So TestNG, right? So TestNG is a framework in our software testing. Okay. NG stands for next generation. Okay. So test next generation. NG is always capital. Whenever you write, don't write it in small characters, because it's the short form of next generation, right? That is what TestNG is. Okay. It was created in 2004 by Cedric to overcome some of the limitations of earlier unit testing frameworks like JUnit and NUnit. Okay, so earlier we had these frameworks JUnit, NUnit, which had some limitations, and we'll see what those limitations were and how TestNG has overcome them. So TestNG is better, right? And it was created in 2004. Okay, TestNG is very flexible and can be used to cover a wider range of test categories. For example, it can cover unit testing, functional testing, end-to-end, and integration testing. Okay, now these are the different types of testing that we have done earlier in our initial types of testing. Okay, and if in case you do not remember those, it's a good idea to always revise back. All right. Okay, so TestNG has reached a maturity point that newer frameworks lack and remains in wide use by companies of all sizes. Okay, so they keep evolving, right? They keep evolving, and now TestNG has reached a maturity point that newer frameworks lack. Okay, so it's one of the most popular frameworks out there in software testing. Okay, so a short list of high-profile companies that use TestNG. Some of these you might have heard: ServiceNow, right? Visa, eBay, right? Panasonic, Deloitte, Barclays, right? They all have been using TestNG for doing the testing part. Okay, so from these, right, there are some big names. From this, you can obviously understand how important is TestNG in the software testing world. Okay. All right. Let me quickly look at the live chat. Valentina says better than build it from scratch. Absolutely, Valentina. That is the point, right? That is the point of any framework, right? That is the point of any framework. It gives you a structure so that you don't have to build everything from the scratch. Okay. And frameworks you will come across everywhere, right? Not just in software testing, everywhere in software development, everywhere, right? Even if you're doing data analytics, everywhere, right? Frameworks are there. Okay. Valentina says, I thought it was testing, but shortened. No, 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 no. Great point, right, Valentina? It's NG is for next generation, right? Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So these are some of the big companies that have been using TestNG, and why you should understand the importance of TestNG, right? So you can look at this website also, right? Their stat.com, which has 7,000 companies on record using TestNG. Okay. Now, TestNG is a good first test automation framework to learn, not only due to its ubiquity, but also because its concepts are transferable to other modern frameworks as well. Okay. So the point being that the concepts that you learn here, right, TestNG, they're transformable to other frameworks. Okay. So if let's say the company that you're working with, okay, they're not using TestNG, they're using some other modern framework, right? The concepts will be similar, right? It's not like that you have to learn everything from scratch or everything is different in that framework. No, the concepts are similar. Okay, so they're not that different. It is also commonly used as backbone for Selenium web browser test. Okay. Now Selenium is another library, and we'll be using Selenium soon in a couple of lectures. After a couple of lectures, that is part of your course, and you'll see how Selenium goes in tandem with TestNG. Okay. So in the following sections, we'll go over the features that are unique to TestNG over other legacy frameworks and how it can be used to provide the best test coverage. Okay, so TestNG and Selenium, right? You'll see how they work in tandem, and Selenium is specifically for automation of the browsers. Okay, it's not the framework. Selenium is the library, right? And it is used for browser test. Okay, when you want to automate your browsers, this will come after a few lectures, right? After a few lessons, you'll be having a deep dive into Selenium. Okay, so we'll do hands-on, and everything on Selenium is a separate lecture altogether on that. Okay, so you can see that TestNG is the backbone for that also, right? So when you use Selenium, you're using to automate the browser and do testing on the browser, right? Now, TestNG is the backbone for that, right? So that is the importance of TestNG. All right. Uh, so you saw how we can provide the best test coverage possible from its annotations to data-driven script capabilities, as well as the concept of parallelizations, right? So these are the concepts that we'll dive into today. What are annotations, right? What are data-driven scripts, and what is the concept of parallelizations? Okay, these are the importance and the advantages of TestNG over other frameworks. Right. Okay. So annotations, right? Let's start with annotations. In the meantime, let me see. Any questions, right? Any questions so far in the live chat? Okay, perfect, right? Perfect. All right. Okay. So annotations, right? What are annotations? Annotations are tags within the code to dictate the business logic and order flow of script execution. Okay. While they existed in earlier test suites like JUnit and NUnit, TestNG offers more extensive and flexible set of annotations. Okay. Now this is a core concept, right? This is a core concept, and this is an important concept of annotations. Okay. Now, before going into the theory of this, right, I'll show you a practical example, right? Let's look at a practical example, and that'll make it more easier for you to understand that. Okay, let me quickly, 1 second, share this other screen. Okay, quickly give me a thumbs up if you can see this new screen. This is visible, right? Perfect, perfect. Awesome, awesome, right? All right. Okay. Now see, what is this? This is Eclipse, right? This is a software known as Eclipse, all right? And it is called an IDE. What is IDE? IDE is Integrated Development Environment. Okay. So this entire software that you see, this is an IDE, right? So IDE is a broad term for these softwares, and one of those is Eclipse. Okay. We'll talk about more IDEs in the later part of today's lesson, but Eclipse is one of the IDs, right? What is an ID? It's a software, right? It's a software, and it provides you the place where you can write your code. Okay, so for example, here you can see I have a package explorer where you can have different sets of packages, different projects, right? You can have different projects. You can write your code here, right? You can create classes and everything. Okay, we'll discuss about details of these, right? We'll discuss about details of how you use the software and everything in our next lecture when we do hands-on testing, right? When we're doing some hands-on testing on TestNG, right? Hands-on TestNG. Then I'll show you everything, right? How you can create a particular project and how you can create the classes over here. Everything we'll discuss on that. Okay, but right now we're doing the theoretical aspects of annotations, right? So for that, I want to show you in a code, right? Because if you see it in an example of a code, that will be easier for you to understand what annotations are actually about. Okay, so till that time, don't worry about what these are, right? This or the above parts, don't worry, because we'll be installing the software today in the later part of the lecture. Right, so you'll start with the installation, and in the next lesson, we'll go into hands-on, right? How you write everything and how you create a new project. Okay, so don't worry about that. Okay, right now just look at this piece of code, right? This piece of code. What is this piece of code? Public class simple test. Okay, and I have my bracket, right? Curly brace over here. This is my ending curly brace. Okay, it's a simple Java class. By now, you must remember what classes are. Quickly tell me what is a class, right? Quickly tell me what is a class. Let me see how much do you remember of Java that we did, because it's been a while since you all did Java now. Okay, so quickly tell me what is a class. Tell me, according to you, right, what is a class, right? What is a class in Java? And anyone who does not understand this part, right, this highlighted piece of code, public class simple test, and this part, okay, anyone who does not understand this, give me some, post your question in the live chat, all right? Okay. And tell me what a class is, right? What is a class? What is a class? We've discussed all this, right? We've created objects, and you've done a lot of things with Java, okay? Tell me what is a class, right? What is a class? And what is the public keyword used for, right? What is this public keyword doing over here? Valentina says it creates objects, right? Correct, right, Valentina? Correct, right? You're on the correct track, right? Correct track. That's correct. Okay. It's used to create objects, right? So class is basically the blueprint. Okay. Class is the blueprint that we have. And once you've decided your blueprint, then you can create objects out of it. Like we discussed about a cupboard, right? So you can first design the cupboard on a paper, or a house, right? You can design it on paper. So the class is the actual designing, right? You're creating the blueprint. Okay. And after that, you can create objects out of it, right? So that is correct. Okay. And I told you what all you can write inside a class. What two things, right? We discussed two things that you can write inside a class. What can you write inside a class? What can I write over here, right? What pieces of code I can write inside a class? What can you write, right? What can you write? We discussed about these things, right? Okay, so never forget, a class serves as a blueprint or a template for creating objects. Exactly, right? Exactly. That's absolutely correct. Seraphim has given a wonderful point. All right. Okay, quickly tell me, right? We created classes and we've done so many programs, right? You all must have practiced. I hope you all have practiced Java in your time in so many times. That was there. Valentina says functions, right? Exactly, right? Valentina, that is absolutely correct, right? That is absolutely correct. Uh, Theodora says methods, right? Exactly, right? Functions, methods, right? Exactly. That's perfect, right? Perfect, 100%. Okay. And variables, right? So we had discussed you can have variables and you can have functions, right? That's absolutely correct. Okay. So now I have this class, right? Now I can write a function, right? I can say public void, okay? Public void, and I can say my test. Okay. Now, quickly tell me, what is this public keyword for? What is this public keyword for? And what is this void keyword for? What is the public keyword? What is the void keyword doing? What is the public and what is the void keyword? Swarupa says variables, right? Exactly, Swarupa, that is correct, right? That is correct, 100%, right? Variables and methods, okay? And Valentina says, I want Arshad's code, I'm done, right? Valentina, we've not yet, it's not done, right? There are more questions, right? There are more questions coming, okay? Not done yet. Okay, so yeah, what is public and what is void? What is the meaning of public and what is the meaning of void? Swarupa says void means no return value, right? Exactly, Swarupa. Absolutely, right? Absolutely correct, right? So that this function is not returning anything. Okay, it's not returning anything. Okay, and public, Valentina says public makes the class accessible from any other class, right? Theodora says public means it can be called from anywhere. Exactly, right? Valentina, that is correct. Theodora, correct, right? And Swarupa, great point, pointing out that void is for that nothing is being returned. All right. So absolutely, right? Absolutely. Okay, your basics are in place, right? You all remember some parts, and that's great, right? Great to see that. All right. Okay. And now you'll see the advantages. Okay. So now let's say this is my function, right? This is my function. Name of the function is what? Name of the function is my test. Okay. And I have these parentheses. These parentheses is what is telling Java that, look, this is actually a function. Okay. And I'm opening the curly brace here. I am closing the curly brace here. All right. Now what happens is inside this, I can write, okay. I can write any piece of code, right? So I can say, let's say system dot out dot println, okay, and I can say I am doing testing. All right. Now this is a simple line of code, right? So right now we are not worried about what logic you're writing inside the function. Okay. So inside the function is where your testing logic will go. Okay. So later on, when you're developing your test, all the logics will go here in the highlighted part. Okay. So your logic part, the code for your logics, you have to write over here. okay, inside the function. Okay, but right now we are not concerned about the logic. So my simple logic is what right now? Just printing a statement, right? My simple logic right now is I just want to print that I am doing testing, right? I'm just printing the statement, okay, nothing else. Okay, so that is my function, right? This is a function I have, and I'm just printing I'm doing testing, okay, nothing else. All right, now the thing is, what is an annotation? See, right now this is a Java function, right? It's a Java function, and Java knows that, okay, this is a function. I don't have to execute this unless someone externally calls it, right? Like if someone is calling the function like this, then only the function will be executed. Otherwise, the function is not executed, right? So Java knows that. All right. But now I am telling Java, right? I'll tell something else to Java. What is it that I'm telling Java? That I will annotate this function. How do you annotate it? You say at the rate, right? You say at the rate and you say test. Okay. So this is how annotation is done. You saying at the rate test. So you're telling Java that, hey, Java, look, this is not an ordinary function. It's don't treat it as your ordinary normal Java function. Treat it as a test function, right? Now I am creating this as a test function. So you're telling Java that this is not a normal function. It's a test function. How are you doing that? By annotating. What is annotating? By saying at the rate test over here. Okay, so just above the function, right? Just above the function, you'll say at the rate test, right? That is how I'm annotating this function, and I'm telling Java that, look, Java, this is not a normal function. It's a test function. All right. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Quickly give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. And Sarfim has shared a good list of not to forget, right? Great, awesome, awesome, right? Valentina says, why would I create a test function, right? Valentina, that is how TestNG, right? So it's a TestNG function actually, okay? Because TestNG will handle those test cases for you, right? And that is why we have TestNG. Okay, so I'll connect to it. I'll connect to it. But try to understand, we are annotating this and we are telling Java that, look, this is a test function, because internally how it's executed is different, right? How test cases are executed, it's different as compared to how Java will normally uh, execute a function. Okay, so we want to make it as a test function. All right, and right now you'll see this red squiggly line. You see this red squiggly line under this? You see the red squiggly line under this? Okay, that means it's very small, right? And here you can see this red cross, right? You can see this red cross. What does that mean? That means that Java is telling me, okay, that Java is telling me that, what is this at the rate test? I do not understand this, right? What is this at the rate test you are telling me? I don't understand this, right? You want to create a function, you create a function like this. Okay, what is this at the rate test? I am not understanding. That's what Java is telling me. That is what the squiggly lines mean, right? Anytime you see a red line, that means Java is having trouble understanding it. Wherever in your piece of code you see a red underline or a red cross here, that means Java is having trouble understanding what exactly it is. Okay, and you need to resolve it. Okay. Does that make sense? Valentina says either test stands for test ng, not for testing. No, 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 Valentina, no. This is not for test ng, right? It does not stand for test ng. Okay. It is just that we are telling Java that, look, this function is not a normal function. It's a test function, right? It's a test function. Now Java is telling me what test, right? What is this test, right? You're just annotating as at test. What is this? I don't know, right? Java says, I don't understand this. Java is telling me I don't understand this. That is why it has this red line. Okay. Now what I need to do is I need to tell Java that, hey, look, okay, you don't understand because it's not part of your core concept, right? It's not part of basic Java. Okay. But if you hover over this, you'll see this first line, import test, right? Import test from TestNG. Okay. You click on this and you see this, this line comes up. This line comes up, import from TestNG, right? You're importing this test. Okay. That means what? TestNG is the framework, right? It's the framework. And from there, we are importing this test. Okay. So in our piece of code, right? In our piece of code, we are bringing something from TestNG. So I am telling Java that, hey, this piece of test, right? This test piece is inside TestNG. So bring it from there here inside my file, right? So in my piece of code, bring it from where? Bring it from TestNG. Okay. As soon as you do that, now you see that red line has gone, right? That red squiggly line has gone. As soon as you import it, your red squiggly line has gone. Okay, what does that mean? So now Java is saying, oh, now I understand. Java is telling me that, okay, now I understand that this test is what this test means, right? This test means that it's defined inside TestNG. Okay, it's there inside TestNG. Once you import it, then Java says, okay, it is over there. I've brought it. Now I know what this other test is, and I'll deal with it. Does that make sense, right? Does that make sense? Valentina says, right? Okay. Valentina says, I don't understand. Valentina, is it clear? Is it clear? See, TestNG is separate. TestNG is the entire framework. Okay. From that entire framework, I am bringing in one annotation. That is this @test. That is what I'm bringing here in my program. Okay. I'm bringing this @test annotation inside my program. Okay. Once I bring it here, then Java will say, okay, now I understand what this is, right? I got it, what this is. So it's a part inside TestNG. And from there, you want to reference @test, right? So Java says, I have got it, right? Valentin says yes, yes, right. Got a few seconds later, right? Awesome, 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 great. All right, okay. Others, give me a thumbs up, right? Is it clear? Is it clear? What is this @test, right? See, if I remove this, right, I'll quickly show you again. If I remove this import, right, I've removed the import. Again, you see this red squiggly line, right? You're seeing this red squiggly line. Okay. So Java is telling me what is this you're trying to do, right? What is this you're trying to do? What is this @test? You are trying to annotate. What is this, right? I don't understand. Okay. So to tell Java, you need to import this. You just hover over it and don't worry about how we are importing, right? How we are importing, don't worry about that. We'll discuss the details of that when we're doing hands-on TestNG in the next lecture, right? We'll go into the details of all this one by one. Okay, but right now I want to show you what are annotations, right? That's why I need to import this. Okay, so as soon as you import this, import means what? From the TestNG framework, you're bringing something here inside your file. Okay, so as soon as you bring it here inside your file, so then Java says, okay, now I've understood. Right now, I understood that what this test is. Okay, and what is that test? So it's a type of a special function, right? So you're annotating this as test. So now you have converted this into a special TestNG test, right? So now it has been converted to what? A TestNG test function. So this is now a test function from the TestNG, right? Does that make sense? So BB gives a thumbs up, right? Jackson gives a thumbs up, right? Great, awesome, awesome, awesome. Others, is it clear? Give me a thumbs up, right, if that's clear. Fatia gives a thumbs up, right? Awesome. Perfect. All right. Okay. So that is one annotation, right? This is @test is one annotation. Like this, you can have multiple annotations. You can have different annotations. So right now you can create more classes, right? More functions, right? I can create more functions. I can say public void my second test, right? So inside this, you can have another logic, right? You can have another logic of some other test, right? So some other testing, let's say you're doing the login functionality testing over here, right? Here you're doing some other testing functionalities. So you can have multiple functions, okay? Each doing a specific test. Okay, this also you can annotate as @test. All you do is @ and test, and that is what is telling Java that look, this is not a normal function. Don't execute it like a normal function. It has to be treated as a TestNG test function. That is what this annotation does. Simple as that, right? Nothing else, nothing, don't complicate it. You're just annotating to tell Java that treat it as a TestNG test function. All right. Now, we have some other annotations also. Okay, so @test is one annotation. Now you can have another annotation like, let's say I say public void. Let's say I call this function as setup. Okay. Now, another annotation is you can say before test. Okay, this is another annotation, right? Before test. All right, and again you can import it. You see right now it is this red squiggly line, and unless you don't import it, Java will not understand what this is. Okay, now what is the meaning of this before test? See, annotating a function, right? If I've annotate this function as before test, what will happen is I am telling Java that you have to execute this function before executing any of the test functions, right? So you have two test functions over here. This is function number one, which is a test function, and you have this function number two, which is a test function. Okay, so I am telling Java that first, right? So this is before test. If I annotate any function as before test, that means what? That function has to be executed. Like this function, whatever logic I write inside this has to be executed before executing any of the test functions. So before you execute any of the test functions, first execute this function. Then only other test functions are able to be executed. Okay, and see, you have this red line, right? Just hover over it and you import it, right? So again, as soon as I import, this line automatically comes. So I don't have to do anything, right? This line automatically comes, right? You see, or TestNG annotations before test, you are importing it. And as soon as you import it, your red line has gone, right? Once you import a functionality, red line has gone and Java understands what it is. Okay. And what is this? This is before test. Means what? This function, any function you annotate, right? Any function you annotate as before test, so you are telling Java that this function has to be executed before any of the test functions are executed. Right now in my code, I have these two test functions, test function 1, test function 2. Before any of these functions are executed, first execute this function. Why? Because I am annotating it as before test. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay, and similarly, you have another annotation, right? You have another annotation as after test, right? So if I say public void and let's say clear up, okay, this is the name of my function, right? Public void clear up. And now you can annotate. How are you annotating? Just at the rate, right? You just use the symbol at the rate and you say after test. Okay, so I'm annotating it as after test. Again, Java gives me this red squiggly line. It tells me what is this, right? What is this after test? You're trying to use this after test. What is the, I don't understand. Okay, and for that you have to tell Java, you need to hover over this and just import, right? Import it. So again, from TestNG you've imported after test into your file and now you can use it. Right now you can use it. So Java has no problem. Once you've imported, now you can use it. Okay, so after test is what? This function, if you annotate any function as after test, then that function will be executed after all the test functions are executed. So if I have two test functions, after all these test functions are executed, then in the end, this function is executed. So it's like after test. So after all the test functions are executed, then this function called after test is executed. Okay. Does that make sense? Is this clear, right? Is this clear? What are annotations? What is before test? What is at the rate test? What is after test? Is that clear, right? If that is clear, give me a thumbs up in the live chat. Or if any questions, do post it in the live chat. Seraphim says, when a method is annotated with at the rate before suit, it will run before the execution of all the test methods in the suit, right? Exactly, right, Seraphim? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up, right? Thank you for bringing that up. We have more types of annotations, right? I'll see, we'll go to the theory, right? We'll go back to the Codio lesson and you'll see there are more types of annotations, okay? And before suit, after suit, right? We'll discuss all those. Okay, but for your understanding, right? So you need to see a program, right? You need to see a program and how it's actually done for you to understand the theory. All right, so that's why I've written this program for you to understand. And Theodore gives a thumbs up, Fatia gives a thumbs up, right? PV gives a thumbs up. Awesome, awesome. All right, okay. So that is in essence what an annotation is, right? You create a function like you do in normal Java, and then you can annotate it with something from TestNG, right? Like you can annotate it as at the rate test, which is telling Java that, hey, treat this as a test function, okay? Annotate as before test, then it will be executed before all the tests are executed. Okay, now you might say that what is the need of this before test, right? What is the need of this before test and what is the need of this after test? Okay, so for example, let's say you're trying to work on you're trying to test the login functionality of a website. Okay, trying to test the login functionality of a website. Okay, now for that you might need to use some username and password, right? Some username and password because you're trying to log in. Okay, so that username and password is some things, right? Let's say you want to connect to the website, you want to open the website, and you want to set the username and password. So all the default things that you want to do before the test, right? All those logics will come inside this, right? So whatever you want to do before the testing. So it's like the preparatory stage, right? It's like the preparation. Okay. So here you can set the username, you can set your password in the variables, and you can, let's say, connect to the website, right? Open the website, open the specific page, right? Or whatever you want to do, you can do it in the setup part. Okay. Once everything is set up, then you can actually run your test, right? Once everything is set up, your username, passwords, everything is set, that I want to try this username, this password, right? Or this button, right? Everything is set. Now you can actually run your test cases. Okay. This is where your test cases is actually executed. Okay. These are the test cases because it's annotated as at the rate test. All right. And once all the test cases are executed, everything is done. Then what you do is then you execute your after test. What will after test do? It is for clearing up some things that you've done in your setup, right? For example, you have connected to a database, right? Now you want to close the connection. Okay, that is what is done in the after test. Once all the test cases are done, now you want to clear out something. Okay, or you want to, let's say, close the browser, right? So those things are done in your after test. you want to close the session, right? Anything that you want to do once, it's for basically winding up, right? Once your test cases are done, you've done your test cases. Now you want to wind up some things, right? Because you want to clear up the memory, right? You don't want to leave the database connections or sessions, right? You don't want to leave them. Okay, so you want to close them. So to close them, this is the place. Okay, that's why after test is the importance of after test. All right. Okay. So that is this, right? And I'll quickly show you how this runs also, right? Let me remove this. Let's keep it. Okay. And if we run this, right? If we run this, you see, let's run this. So you'll see something like this, right? Results of TestNG. Okay. And these are test cases, right? What are these tests? All tests are there, right? Failed test, you'll see here. What is the summary? And you'll see everything over here. Okay. Let's see one second. Let's look at another example, right? Look at this one, right? So this is the example from your Codio lesson, right? This is the exact example from your Codio lesson. And let's quickly go through the code of this, right? So look at the code. What is the code? You have this public class simple check, right? Public class simple check. And now you have a function called before demo, right? Name of the function is what? Before demo. And how many test functions are here, right? Now tell me, right? You all tell me how many test functions are here, and how many other functions are there, right? So tell me the gist of it, right? How many test functions are there? How many other functions are there? Uh, Tell me in the live chat, right? Tell me the live chat. How many different types of functions do you see here? Susan says three, right? Susan, correct, right? Correct. So you have three test functions, right? You have three test functions. That is this test demo one, right? This is the name of the function test demo one. Okay. This is again public void test demo 2, right? That is the name of the second function, test demo 2. This is the name of the third function, right? Test demo 3, right? So these are the three test functions. How do you know it? Because they're annotated as @, test, right? This is @test, @test, @test. They have been annotated as @test. Okay. So these three are our test functions. What are they doing, right? What are they doing inside the logic is nothing, right? The logic inside is nothing, right? It's just a print statement, just a simple print statement, because right now we are not worried about what is the logic inside the function. We are not writing the test cases, the exact logic of testing, right? We're not doing that right now. Okay. Right now inside the function, you just have a simple print statement, nothing else. Okay. Simple print statement inside this function, simple print statement inside this function, second test demo 2 and test demo 3, right? Just a simple print statements. Okay. So these are the three test functions that you have. Okay. Susan says there's two others, right? Two others, correct, right? First one is the before test, right? This is the before test, and this last one is the after test. Okay. Again, what are they doing inside the function? The logic is nothing, right? This is again a comment. If you remember correctly from your previous Java classes, this is how we write comments, right? Just double slash, it's a comment. It's not part of Java. Java will not treat it, and it's just for human readable, right? It's just for humans and for team members to collaborate. Okay. So you see, we're writing the logic here, right? Logic inside here. And right now the logic is what? Just to print, right? Just print that setup after test. Okay, nothing else. All right. So we have these five functions, right? You have these five functions. Function number one is what? Before test. Name of the function is what? Before demo. Okay. So the logic goes here. Whatever preparations you want to do, that logic goes here. Okay. And at the rate test, right? These three test functions we have annotated as at the rate test. And this is the fifth function annotated as after test. All right. Now, if we run this, right, if we run this, you can see how it's executed. And you see this, right? These are test cases, okay, and field test, and you see the summary, okay, everything. Details of this we'll discuss, right? Details of this we'll discuss in our hands-on TestNG, because right now the idea is not to do a hands-on TestNG, right? We are not actually doing the hands-on, right? The idea is to tell you from the code perspective what are these annotations, because if you just look at the theory, you'll not understand what these annotations are actually. All right, so that is the point, right? That is the point. What are these annotations? These are known as annotations. All right. Okay, now let me go back to our theory. All right, let me quickly share back this Codio screen. Okay, is the Codio screen visible now again? Awesome, right? Valentina says yes, right? Perfect. Awesome. All right. Okay. So these are annotations, right? That is what we are discussing as annotations. Now you can see how many types of annotations you have, right? These are all the different types of annotations. Okay. Let's discuss one by one. Okay. So the first one you have is before suit and after suit. Okay. Before suit and after suit is what? See, a suit is what? Suit is a set of all test methods, right? So a suit is basically, you can imagine it as a superset folder, right? Inside that folder you have multiple test cases, right? Multiple different test cases. Okay, so suit is the entire thing. Okay, so if you annotate any function as before suit, then that function is executed before anything in the suit is executed. Any test inside the suit is executed before that. Okay, and after suit is what? After suit is after all the test cases of the suit are completed, then that function is executed. Okay, before test is what? Before test is for test for it's for the test functions that are there inside that particular class, right? So basically the class in which we are working, the example that I showed you, right? The class that we are working on. So before test is executed before any of the test functions inside that class. Okay, so that is executed before the execution of all the test methods available uh, of available classes belonging to that folder, right? So inside that particular class, whatever test cases you have, right? So before that. All right. After test is for what, right? After test is executed after the execution of all the test methods of the class inside that. All right. So that is after test. Before class is what? Before class, if you annotate something as before class, it will be executed before the first method of the current class is invoked, right? So before any method of the current class is executed, the before class method is executed. All right. And after class is what? After class is invoked after the execution of all test methods from the current class. So once all the methods of the current class are executed, then the after class method is executed. All right. Before method, right? What is again before method? Before method is the method is annotated will be executed before each test method will run, right? So that is before method, right? Before the execution of before each test method is executed. So this method is executed, right? Before each, right? The difference here is that this is before each test method. Okay. So earlier your before test was before any of the test cases are executed, that function is executed. Okay. Now before method is what? It is executed before each of the test function, right? Test demo 1 before method is executed. Test function 2 before method is executed, right? Test function 3. So before each of the test functions are executed, this method is first executed. Okay, and then the specific test function is executed. All right, and after method, right? After method is what? It's run after the execution of each test method. Okay, so one test method is executed, then this after any function that you've annotated as after method, that will be executed. All right. Is this making sense? Is this making sense? And you have before groups and after groups again. You can annotate as set of groups, right? And method will run before a group, before the execution of all the test cases belonging to that particular group, right? If you have created a group, the before groups will be executed before any method from that particular group is executed, right? So these are all annotations. After groups will do what? It will do after all the test functions of the group are executed, then this is executed. Okay, so these are annotations that you annotate as methods, right? You annotate it to the methods. Okay, and most widely that you'll be using are these, right? Before test, after test, and your before method, after method. Okay, these are the most widely used, right? Before class, after class sometimes. All right, so does that make sense, right? Does annotations make sense, right? What are annotations? So these are types of annotations that you can annotate any particular function, right? Any Java function you have, you can annotate it as any of these types, right? You can annotate as any of these types, and it'll add a new meaning to that function. All right, does that make sense, right? Does that make sense? Quickly give me a thumbs up, right? If you have understood what annotations are. And here are some before steps, right? Some before steps method. Uh, what are the things that you might need in the before steps, right? Like before test or before suit, right? Before method. What things you might need? Okay. For example, like I told you, logging into a website, okay, or connecting to a database, right? Like I told you, okay, or initializing some variables, right? For example, let's say you're doing username or password checking, right? Or you're trying to check for, let's say, a sign up functionality, or you're trying to check up, let's say, the e-commerce cart, right? And you want to initialize some variables. Okay, so those initializations can be done in the before methods, right? So any method that you annotate as before test or before method, right? Over there you can do these parts, right? You can initialize the variables, and so let's say you have some variables to be initialized for one specific method, so you can do that in the before parts. Okay. And once the before annotations complete these steps, then multiple test cases can be run without having to repeat the steps every time, right? So you don't have to repeat the same thing. You don't have to repeat logging into the website every time, because you might have, let's say, 10 different test cases. You've created 10 different functions, and those are your 10 different test cases, right? 10 different testing logic. Okay. Now, you don't have to logging to the website at every time. You don't have to connect to the database every time. You do it once in before test and it's done. All right. So you don't have to do it for every function. All right. And let me quickly look at the live chat, right? Susan gives a thumbs up, right? Great, awesome. Okay. And after test, right? What are the things that we do in after test? In after test, what you do is you do, let's say, log out, right? You want to log out of the website, okay? Or you want to terminate the database connection, right? Or the microservice connection, okay? Or you want to delete any data or variables that you had declared earlier before your test run, right? You had done some things which you want to delete, or anything you want to wind up, right? Those are the things done in the after steps, right? Those are in the after steps part. Okay, so whichever functions you annotate as after, over there you do these things. Okay, so there is an additional annotation for generating large amounts of data and feeding them into test scripts that will be covered in the next section, which is the other data provider, right? So we'll move to another type of annotation. This is a different annotation, other data provider, and we look at what this is, right? Other data provider, how it provides data, basically. But before I move to that, is this annotations absolutely clear, right? I want to see a thumbs up, right? Give me a thumbs up if you've understood what annotations are, and what is a before test, after test, right? And what exactly are those annotations doing, right? If that's not clear, right, tell me in the live chat, and we'll go through it once again. Okay, it's because this is the core concept, right? This is the core concept of TestNG. Because where are these annotations coming from? They're coming from TestNG, right? That is the advantage of TestNG, right? That all you have to do is you're just annotating as either it test or either it before test, right? You're just annotating and you're not doing anything else. Okay, why? Because the implementation of that has already been done inside TestNG, right? So whoever has written the entire framework of TestNG, right? The Java codes inside TestNG. TestNG is a you'll see when we do in the next lecture. I'll show you the codes inside TestNG. There are a lot of Java codes, right? A lot of Java files inside TestNG. Okay, so they've already written those things for you, right? So right now what you're doing, you're just annotating at the rate test and you're done. Okay, so that's the point, right? That's the point. Okay, Susan gives a thumbs up, right? Vivi gives a thumbs up. Awesome, right? When he says yes, Valentina says, I'm not really sure what they import, but I understood what they do, right? Exactly, Valentina, right? Perfect, absolutely perfect, right? That's all you need to understand right now. That what they're doing, right? What they're importing is that we'll do when we're doing hands-on, right? When we actually do hands-on test ng in the next lesson, right? When we do everything from the scratch, then you'll better understand. Okay, but right now, if you want to understand in one line, it's basically, let's say, it's importing, right? It's importing the test functionality, right? It's importing the test functionality. Okay, let's go back to the Eclipse, right? Let's go back to the Eclipse, and I'll show you the data provider also over there. And okay, so we're back to the Eclipse, right? Now this, right? So when you're importing, right? See, when you're importing this functionality, right? This at the rate test. Okay. So once I've told that, hey, I'm telling Java that, look, this function is not a normal function. This is a test function, right? It's a test function. It has to be treated differently. How differently? How do I do that, right? All that is told to Java. Java understands that from this import. Okay. This import is actually, you are bringing everything from the test ng over here in my file. Right. So basically, see, if I remove this import statement, right? I remove this import statement, you see this red line. Okay. Why are you seeing this red line? Because you have not declared anything. You have not written any line of code over here that is telling Java what is this at the rate test or how to deal with this, right? How to implement that functionality. You've not written a piece of code. Okay. So maybe if I'm doing it from the scratch, like we discussed in the beginning of the lecture, right? Why it's not a good idea to do everything from the scratch. But if I decided, right, for example, let's say I decided I want to do this from the scratch, then I might have to write 100 lines of code over here, right? I might have to write 100 lines of code over here. Okay, not this class, not this abstract, but 100 lines of code, right? I might have to write 100 lines of code over here just to make the implementation of what this at the rate test is. I might have to write 100 or 1,000 lines of code. Okay, but to avoid that, right, to avoid that, someone else has already done that. So what I can do is I can just import it from TestNG. I come here, I import it. Okay, so you import this from TestNG, so you don't have to write those hundred or thousands lines of code. You don't have to do that because someone else has already done it, right? If I want to show you, right, you see this here, right? Inside this, right? Inside this, you'll see all this Java, right? This all Java codes, right? You see this all this Java codes. Okay, we'll discuss more on this when we do hands-on TestNG, right? But you can see here, right? So all this is part of TestNG, right? So from this TestNG, I am bringing one specific thing. What is that? This test, right? This test functionality, this test part, I'm bringing it here in my piece of code, right? And once I bring it here, then I can use it, right? Now I'm free to use it, okay? Because I have brought those thousands lines of code over here by writing this just one line. By writing this just one line, I have imported all that, okay? So someone else might have written those thousand lines of code just to implement how the test functionality works, okay? So they've written those thousand lines of code. I import it over here, so I've got those thousand lines. Now I just have to annotate this at the rate test, right? Does that make sense, right? Does that make sense, Valentina? Even if not, right, don't worry. We'll discuss more of this in our hands-on TestNG. Okay, and Seraphim has also shared us great this, right? You need to import those annotations because TestNG has all of them already implemented to assist you in testing your methods. You don't need to do them from scratch, right? I just need to use them, right? Exactly, right? Exactly, absolutely, right? Seraphim has put it spot on, right? That's spot on. Okay, so that's the point, Valentina. You don't have to do it everything from scratch, right? TestNG, that's the reason why we are using TestNG, right? Because they've made it such a they've made it in such a nice and concise and such a robust manner that you can implement it, right? You don't have to do it from scratch, right? That's the point. If you want to do it from scratch, you can, right? Feel free to remove these imports, right? Feel free to remove these imports, write thousand lines of code, right? And implement your own testing functions, right? You can do that, right? Feel free to do that, right? But that's not a good idea if your project or your team is saying that we need to do the testing fast, right? It's an agile methodology, right? If you're implementing that, you need to do the testing fast, right? There'll be multiple iterations, all right? And a quick recap question, right? To a quick recap question, what was the other methodology, right? Agile methodology we had done. What was the other methodology of testing, right? Software development that we had done. Quickly tell me in the live chat, right? Quickly tell me in the live chat. Andy says waterfall, right? Susan says waterfall, right? Very quick, right? Ina says waterfall. Susan says hybrid, right? Hybrid is also correct, right? Excellent, right? Valentina. Perfect, right? Great, 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 right? It's good to see that you all remember all those, right? Perfect. Awesome, awesome. All right. Okay. So that's the point, right? That's the point that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? You don't have to do that, right? Because some robust and very well written code is already available for you. And that's inside TestNG. Okay. And that's the TestNG framework, right? So you import it, right? You just import it, and now you can use, right? Now you're using either test, using either before test, and you're using either test. All right. So these are the things that you're using. Okay. And once you annotate it, now Java understands, right? Java understands how to handle this function. Okay. Basically, Java has understood how to handle this function. How has Java understood? Because of these thousand lines of code that this is bringing. This import is bringing thousand lines of code inside my file over here, right? It's bringing thousand lines of code. Because of that, Java has understood how to deal with this function. Okay, that is the point. All right. Okay. Now let's move to data provider, right? Let's move to data provider. And okay, before we move to data provider, right? Let's take a quick break, right? Let's take a break of 10 minutes because I need some time with the data provider, right? In 5 minutes, it's not a I don't want to break the data provider in 5 minutes, right? All right. Okay, let's take a break right now, right? And let's come back after 10 minutes and then let's start with data provider. All right. And till that time, if you have any questions on annotations or how this is working, post in the live chat, right? Post in the live chat and I'll come back and discuss it. All right. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Joanna. No worries. And congratulations, right? We have a winner. And I refuse to give up, right? One day I'll also win. It's been two cohorts and I have not won even once, right? But I refuse to give up, right? Like the song. All right. Okay. Quickly give me thumbs up, right? You can see the screen. And Jordan, right? Jordan has won. Congratulations, Jordan, right? Well done. All right. Okay. And yeah, quickly give me a thumbs up, right? If you can see the screen. Awesome, right? BB gives a thumbs up. Great. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Okay. So we've discussed about annotations and how you can annotate a function as either a test, either a before test, other types of annotations. Okay. Now there is a special type of annotation which is known as data provider. right? What is that used for? See, for example, let's say this is my test function, right? This is my test function, and I'm trying to write some piece of logic over here. Okay, now this function might need some different types of data. Okay, it might need, let's say I'm trying to do the login functionality, right? I'm trying to test the login functionality, and I want to try with different set of usernames. Okay, different set of usernames. I want to try that. Okay, maybe admin is one username, or maybe guest is another username, right? I want to try for the different sets of usernames, right? And the same function, right? The same test function has to be implemented for each of those different values. So for example, for admin, right? So one way is what I can do is I can declare a variable here, right? I can say string, uh, let's say username, right? String username is equal to, let's say I can say admin, right? I can do this, okay? And after this, right? After this is, I'll write the logic of doing my testing of checking the username, okay? And I can run this, right? I can run this. I can see what happens in my test. Does it pass? Does it fail? I can see that. All right. And after that, right, once I've done with admin, then I can come back here, right? I can come back here. I can change this from admin to, let's say, guest, right? I want to check whether the same functionality is working correctly for guest or not, right? So you can do that, right? But that's a very naive approach. This is automation, right? Ultimately, we are doing automation testing, okay? Because you're writing these automated scripts, right? Which should run automatically, and no manual intervention should be required. All right. So I want to provide different types of data to my test, right? To this functionality, to this test, I want to provide different types of data, right? Maybe admin, guest, right? Whatever I want to do, it should be variable, right? So where can you provide that? Where can you provide that? You can provide it here in the parameter, okay? Inside the parenthesis, you can provide that over here, right? Instead of declaring this variable here, what you can do is you can tell this function, right? You can tell this function that, hey, the data provider, right? The data provider to you, right? The data provider to you, see, is, you can give the name of the function. See, earlier when we were doing, right? Earlier when we were doing a basic Java, right? When you're doing basic Java, here you're doing something like int a, right? Or int x, okay? This was the input, right? Int a comma int b, right? This was the input parameters you were providing, right? And integer a would be the input, integer b would be the input, and that is what this function requires, and then this function deals with it, okay? But here in TestNG, what you do is you don't do that. In TestNG, what you do is you say the data provider, right? You say data provider is who. I will give the name of a function who will be the data provider to my this function, okay? So let's say I can give the name as, let's say, ABC, right? ABC. What does this mean? Let me quickly correct the spelling. Provider. All right. Okay, so I am saying the data provider, right? The data provider for this function is the function called ABC. So whichever function is called ABC is the data provider for my this function. Okay, the function named ABC will provide data to this particular test function. All right. Now, where is the function named ABC? It is not there, right? Function named ABC is not there. So I have to create it, right? I need to declare it. I need to create it. Okay. So you can create it over here, right? You can say, let's say, public void, right? It's a public void ABC, right? Now this ABC is the name of the function, right? Now this is my ABC function, and inside this, right? Inside this, I can provide some data, right? For example, I can say, let's say I want to have some, let's say, value, let's say string, okay? Username is equal to, let's say string username is equal to admin, right? Now what I can do is I can return this, right? I can return the username, all right? And this will obviously be changed to string. Why? Because now I'm returning some value, right? So we declared this was void only when you don't return something, okay? But now we are returning, okay? So who is the data provider? ABC function is the data provider, okay? So this function ABC, it will contain all the data, right? Basically this function ABC will contain all the data, and it will provide it, right? It will provide it to who? It will provide it to this test function, okay? But you have to explicitly tell Java. So here you have to annotate this function as a data provider. So you have to tell Java that, hey, this is not a normal function, right? It is a data provider, right? So this is what you need to annotate it as. Okay, this is at the rate data provider, right? That's the annotation you use to a function which is providing data to another function. All right, so this function is what we declare as data provider, and this will provide data to my test function called my test. Okay, and right now I just one value, right? I just have one value right now, but we'll see, right? We'll look at another example where you can have multiple values here, right? We'll create an array. Okay, so that array is there, and that array is what you can return over here. So one by one, each value is given to this particular function, and this function is executed based on that. All right, let's look at a better example. Right now, you'll understand with a better example, a more complicated example, right? Now look at this, okay? In this, how many functions can you see, right? In this particular class, right? You see this class, look at this piece of code, how many functions, okay? Not what is there inside the function. Don't worry about what's there inside the function. Just tell me how many functions are there, right? Take a macro level look, right? Don't go inside the functions. Just take a macro level look and tell me how many functions can you see over here, and what are the annotations to those functions, right? What annotations do you see to those functions, and how many functions you're seeing? Tell me the name of the function, and function one name is this. What is the annotation? Function two, what is the name? What is the annotation? Right? Tell me these two. Everyone, right? Everyone. I want to see everyone, right? I want to see everyone getting this correct, right? Because this is a small piece of code, right? See, the class is starting from here, right? Here is where the curly brace is starting. This is where the curly brace is ending. So that's my entire class, right? That's my entire class. The name of the class is simple data provider, right? Name of the class is simple data provider. My question to you is, how many functions are you seeing inside this class? And what is the annotation done to that function? Okay. Valentina says about me, right? Correct, Valentina, correct. And what is the annotation for that function about me? So then says function two, right? Function two at the rate test, and function one is data provider, right? Absolutely right, correct, that is correct, right, Susan? That is 100% correct, right? So you have two functions. Valentina says at the rate test for about me. Absolutely right, correct, Valentina, that is correct. Susan, that is correct, right? Wonderful. Okay, so you have two functions here, right? If you take a macro level look, this is your function one, and this is your function number two. Okay, function number one, what is the name of the function? Data set example, that is the name of the function. Function number two, you see, what is the name of the function? About me, right? That is the name of the function. Okay, what are the annotations? Here the annotation is at the rate test, right? So this function about me is a test function. And what is this function doing? Now if you look at this function, it is doing nothing, right? Inside the function, you see, it's just printing. What is it printing? It is saying my name is plus name, right? My name is just the name. Okay, where is this variable name coming from? It's coming from here, right? It's coming from here. Okay, name is coming from here. This is the input parameter. Okay, so if the name here goes as, let's say, John, right, then this will display my name is John. Okay, if the name here is Alex, right, so the display is my name is Alex. All right, so whatever name comes here, right, so whatever variable you send here, this function will work on that particular variable. Okay, so that is the idea, right? That is the idea. What we've done now is separated out the data, right? So there's no data here. Data is coming externally from this, right? From this, the data is coming. Okay, now where exactly is our data? Our data is in this function, right? So I have created a separate function called dataset example. Name of the function is dataset example. That's the same function, and it's annotated as data provider, right? So this is a data provider. So this is not a test function. It's not a before test, after test. It will just contain some data, and it's a data provider. Okay. So now what is the data inside this? See, the data inside this is what. Okay, and before coming to the data, see, once you annotate this as a data provider, right? Here you have to say that the data provider for this function is what? Who is the data provider here? The data set example. So whichever function has the name data set example, that function will provide data to this test function. This is my test function. Okay, what I've highlighted right now is my test function. And who is providing data here? Because when I'm annotating it as iterate test, I am saying that, hey, the data provider to this function is data set example. That's the name of the function, right? So that's in within inverted commas, name of the function, right? What is the name of the function? Data set example. So whichever function has this name data set example, that will provide data for me in this particular function. All right. So basically these names, right? You see the string names. These names are coming from where? From this function dataset example. So dataset example will send in these names. And for each value that the dataset example sends me, I will execute this function, right? I will execute this function, basically this test. I'll execute this test for each value that this function dataset example sends me. Okay, now what is this dataset example doing, right? Look at this function dataset example. What is this doing? How is it sending data, or what kind of data is it sending? Okay, now look at this first line, right? Look at this first line. Tell me what kind of a data type is this, right? What data type do you recall from this? What kind of a data type is this, right? Is it integer, string, right? What do you see? What do you see? What kind of data type is here? Is it a float? Is it a double, integer, string, right? What do you see? What do you see? What kind of data has been declared here? Valentina says string, right? Ina says string, right? Not exactly, right? Not exactly. It's something more, right? Something more. I'm looking for a more keyword, right? See, string is already written there, right? So I'll not ask that simple question, right? Valentina says array, right? Great, Valentina. Yeah, yeah. Now you are winning my Kahoot, right? Yeah. Okay, absolutely right. Since it's array, right? Perfect, right? Susan, that is perfect. Valentina, that is perfect. Jixing array is perfect, right? That's perfect, right? This is an array, right? So we had discussed about how we declare array. See, this is where your basics come into the picture, right? If your basics are clear, and that is why we did program fundamentals part one, part two. We spend so much time because once your basics are clear, then all these becomes easy, right? And now you can see, right? Now you can see once you have these TestNG, Selenium, right? When you'll see those, it's you don't have to do much, right? You just import and you start using them. You just import, you start using them. Okay, so you'll see that your life is easier in Java after this, right? But your basics always help you. Okay, so what are the basic that we had discussed? If you declare int, right, let's say a, and you use these these square brackets, that is telling Java that, hey, this is an array, right? It's not an integer, it's an array of integers, right? Array of integers means what? There can be multiple values here, right? So I can say, let's say this, right? You can have multiple values inside this, right? You can have multiple values. You can have, let's say, 2, 3, 2, 4, 5, right? Like you can have multiple values. Okay, so that is an array, right? Array of multiple values. Okay, the same data type but multiple values. Okay, so same thing here, right? I have string, right? String data, and it's an array, right? I'm saying it's an array. Name of the variable is data. This is an array, and I say it's a new string 3, right? 3 means what? 3 spaces, right? I'm creating an array of 3 variables, right? Basically 3 places is what I want. Okay, name of the data, name of the array is data, right? Now, at the first position, like I told you earlier, also you start from 0 always, right? So I do data at the position 0. Okay, so in my array data, at position 0, right? At position 0, what value do I want to store? I want to store the value this, right? Name 1. Okay, here you can choose a different value, right? Let's say admin. Okay, I want to store admin over here. Okay, data 1, right, at the first position. This is at the 0th position, first position, second position. These are three different spaces that you have, right? Because you have 3 space. You're declaring an array of 3, right? So you have 3 spaces, and 0 is the first position, then 1, then 2, right? Those are the 3 spaces that you have. The first place, right, that's 0, you say it's admin, the value is admin, and data at position 1 is, let's say, guest. Okay, and data at position 2 is, let's say uh it's a user, right? Admin, guest, and user. Okay, now so these three, right, these three data I have: admin, guest, and user. Okay, now I'm doing what? I'm returning this data. I'm returning what? I'm returning data. Okay, so you're returning this entire array of data. So you have 3 values here, right? So the data array has 3 values, right? The array called data has 3 values: admin, guest, and user. Okay, and that you're returning. So this function is doing what? It's just creating an array of 3 strings, right? What are those 3 strings? Admin, guest, and user. And this function is just returning it, right? Doing nothing else, right? Nothing extraordinary. It's just creating an array and it's returning that array. Okay. The point is, now all my data has been segregated here into this function, right? So all my data is here inside this function. Okay. And it is being returned. Okay. Now what I can do, I can come to my test function. This is my test function over here. Now I can say, hey, test function, the data provider for you is who? This function called data set example, right? This function data set example is the data provider for you. So this function will provide you data. Okay, so take the data from this function one by one and execute my test, right? Execute my test one by one for each data that you get from this function. Okay, so what are the data you're getting from this function? It's returning you an array, right? It's returning you an array of 3 values. Okay, so the first value comes in, right? This admin, right? The first value admin comes in over here, and this function, right, that admin goes here inside this name, and this test function is executed. So your test is executed for the value of admin, right? So admin value, your test is executed, and it'll see whether it is passing, failing, right? Everything. So your test function is executed. That you see in the output, right? Whether it's passing, failing, what has happened to it. Okay. Then the next value, right? The next value is guessed, right? So guessed is sent to this function, right? Because the data provider is sending you the next value that is guessed. Okay. So guessed is sent over here to this function, and again the same test is executed with the value what? With the value of guessed. Okay. So same function. So you don't have to modify anything, right? Like the earlier example I showed you, I had to manually come inside my function and change the value, right? So now you don't have to change anything, right? Guess is coming here, and the same function is executed for the value guessed. Once that is done, once that function is executed, then you come here for the next value, and that is user, right? The third value user is sent over here to you in this function, and your entire function is executed for the third value user. Okay, so the point is you're not changing your test function. Once your logic of the test function has been set, that is set, right? So your logic of doing the testing is separate, right? This has been separated out from the data, right? Now the data has been separated out here in this function. Okay, and tomorrow if you want to increase, right, you want to increase the values, you can always increase it over here, right? You can say let's say 5, and then you can come here, right, and you can keep increasing. You can say data, and you can say 3, right? The new value will be, let's say, uh new name, right? New name. Okay. And then you can have data at 4, data at position 4. Now you can again have a new value, right? Let's say testing, right? So you can keep adding your data, right? The point is data has been segregated into a separate function, right? And now you can keep adding your data. Whatever thing you want to do with your data, that is here separate. Okay. And the core logic of doing your testing is separate inside this function, right? The core logic is separate. Okay. Now, the thing is, how are they two connected? By this line here, right? This line is connecting those two, right? So here, when you're declaring it as test, you are saying the data provider for this function is who? That is this function called dataset example. The function named dataset example will provide the data for this test function. Okay, and wherever this function is dataset example, this function you have to annotate as the special annotation, that is this data provider, this @data provider. You have to annotate this function. So whichever function you are trying to keep as a data provider for another test function, right? You're trying to create a function which will contain all your data, right? You're segregating out your data. So you're creating a function which will have all your data. That function you have to annotate as @data provider. Okay, does that make sense, right? Does that make sense, what a data provider is and how it is sending data to the test function? Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if that's clear, and if not, right, give me a thumbs down if it's not clear. I'll repeat it and we'll go through it again. Planning test is amazingly clear, right? Awesome, right? Awesome, awesome. That's amazing. All right. Okay. Others, give me a thumbs up if it's clear. If not, right? Because see, these are the core concepts, right? There's not much to TestNG, right? There's not much. These annotations are there. You have the test, after test, before test. You have the data provider. These 3, 4 things are the core, right? These are the core of TestNG, right? So be absolutely clear with it. And now you see how your basics of programming helps you over here, right? Once your basics are clear, you don't have to worry about what this is doing, right? It's absolutely clear. Okay. All right. BB gives a thumbs up, right? Others, let me know if you have any question, right? If there's any question, just post it in the live chat, right? And we can discuss it again, or if something is not clear, right? Let me know in the live chat. Give me a thumbs up, right? If it's clear, if you've understood, if you've got it, right? Give me a thumbs up. So if I've just seen Valentina and BB, right? Others, I need to see your thumbs up or thumbs down, right? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Valentina says, I guess that without my previous web development course at this point, I was hardly crying, right? Yes, Valentina, absolutely, right? Absolutely. That previous knowledge does help, right? Absolutely. Great. Omri says, not clear, right? Please explain again, right? Sure, right? Sure. Let's go through this again, right? Valentina, logics are similar and help, right? Absolutely, Valentina, that is absolutely correct. That is correct. Okay. And let me see others, right? Others, Omri, I'll repeat it, right? I'll repeat it again. Jordan is typing, right? Let me see Jordan. Jordan says no, right? Jordan says changed my mind. Jordan, no means what? Did not understand or Jackson says, could you explain it again, right? Awesome, awesome, right? Yeah. Okay, let's go through it again, right? Let's go through it again. Jordan says, I'm good, right? Okay, okay, great, awesome, awesome. All right, okay. Jackson Omri, right? Let's go through it again, right? Let's go through it again. Okay, so let me come back to the simple one, right? Let's come back to the simple one. Okay, so let's say I am doing some testing over here, right? I am creating this function, public void. Look at this function, right? Look at a new function. Okay, so this is my function, right? This is my function called what? Public void my second test. Okay, my second test is the name of my function, right? Inside this, I'll be doing some testing, right? Inside this, I'll be doing testing. Okay. For example, I say system dot out dot println, and I say trying to test, right? Trying to test login functionality. Okay, I'm just printing, right? It's just simple print statement, right? Nothing else. Okay, it's just not doing any logic right now. Okay, but imagine here you had 10 lines of code, right? You had 10 lines of code that was trying to do your login functionality, right? It was trying to do your login functionality of a website, and you have 10 lines of code over here. Okay, now you want to test for a username, right? So when you're doing a login functionality, you need a username, right? You need a username, you need a password, right? So what you do is I need that username. So how can you declare a variable? You can declare it over here. You can say string, and let's say you can say username, right? String username is equal to, and you can declare it here, right? Let's say admin. Okay. So my value of the username is what? Admin, right? Username is the name of the variable. Value inside it is what? Admin. Okay. And after this, you have this 10 lines of code, right? After this, you have 10 lines of code. Using this username, you're testing whether it logs into the website or not, right? You're doing all that testing. Okay. Don't worry about how that logic comes here. Don't worry about that. Right now, we are talking about the data. Okay. So what is the data I'm trying to use? I'm trying to work on the username called admin, right? I'm trying to work on that, and I'm testing whether the login functionality for admin is working correctly or not. Okay. Now my team tells me that, okay, good, right? I've run this test, and I see that, okay, it has passed, right? I run this test, I see it has passed. I say, great, right? Okay, for admin, it is working correctly, right? It's working perfectly fine. Okay. Now my team tells me that, hey, what about guest, right? So admin users are able to log in. You've checked that admin users are able to log into the website, right? That's perfect. All right. But what about guest, right? What about guest? So someone has a value called guest. Are they able to log into the website or not, right? In our website, guest users are also able to log in. Okay, but they'll see a different page, right? So now I have to come here, I have to change this data, and I need to see guest, right? I'll change the username to guest, and then again I'll run this function, right? So the same function I have to run again, but now with a different value. What is the different value? With the guest. Okay, with this different value called guest. Okay, then my team will say that, okay, you've done with guest, right? You've done with guest. Now try with a different, right? Try with a different value called user. Okay, so different value is user. Okay, so try for this, right? So I have to come back here again. I need to change this, right? From guest to user, I have to manually change it. And then again, I need to run this test function, and then I'll see whether it passes or fails, right? If it fails for user, then I can tell the team that, hey, it passes for admin, it passes for guest, but for user, it is failing, right? So our login functionality is failing if a user is trying to log in, right? If an admin is trying to log in, it's fine. If a guest is trying to log in, it's fine. But if a user is trying to log in, it's failing. Okay, that is what I'll tell the team. But the problem here is that every time I need to change the value of the username, I have to come here and manually I have to change this. So again, if I need to do admin, I have to manually come here, delete this, and do admin, right? So point is your data is inside this function. So your data is inside the TestNG function, right? Now, what you want to do is you want to segregate the two, right? You want to segregate the testing logic, and you want to segregate the data, right? So what I do is I create another function here, right? I say I'll segregate this, right? I'll say public, let's say void, right? And let's say my data, right? Now here what I do is here I'll keep a data, right? So I'll say, let's say string, and I say username, right? String username is equal to admin. All right. Now what I do is I return this, right? I say return username. All right. And if I'm returning some value, this cannot be void. So this has to be string. Okay. So I'm returning the string, right? I'm returning the string and this username. Okay. So what am I doing? Let's create an array, right? Let's create an array. So right now it's just one string, right? Let's do it with one string. Okay. So it's one string, right? One string having the value admin, right? It has just one value admin, and name of the function is what? My data. Okay, so this function is doing what? It is just creating one variable called username with the value admin, and it is returning that, right? It is returning that. Okay, what is that function? That's my data. Okay, so now what I can do, instead of keeping this admin over here, right? Instead of keeping this admin here, I can remove this from here, right? And I can say, hey, the test function that I'm doing, I'm telling Java that, hey, here the data provider, right? Someone will provide you data, right? And the data provider for you is the function called my data. So this function, right, whichever function is called my data, that function will provide you data, right? And which function is called my data? That is this, right? And here you need to annotate this as, you need to annotate it as data provider. That means what? That this function is a data provider to some other function, right? So this is actually providing data to some other function. Okay, we need to import this, right? You see this, right? Because this function is providing data to another function, right? That is what I'm telling Java. All right, now the thing is, here you are just sending in one, right? You're just sending in one data. Okay, but what you can do is you can create an array, right? You can create an array, and you can have multiple values. Instead of just having one value, you can create an array and you can have multiple values like this, right? So I can create this array. Okay, I can create this array, and let me copy this, right? Let me copy this here and let's bring it over there. Okay, let's bring it here, right? So now instead of just one variable, right, instead of just one variable username, I have an array, right? I have an array of, let me call this username. Okay, I have an array of username. Okay, and username at position 0, right? Username at position 0 is the value admin, and username at position 1 is guest, and username at position 2 is what? User, right? Let's remove 3 and 4, right? Let's not have this. Let's just have 3. Okay, so we have 3, right? So I've created an array of 3 variables, right? So you have admin, guest, and user. Okay, and then I'm returning this username. All right, so I return this. Okay, so the data provider, this has to be an array. All right, yeah. Okay, so I'm returning this username, right? I'm returning this username. Now the point is, inside this username you have 3 values: admin, guest, and user. So what happens now is, first this value admin, right? First this value admin is sent over here to this function. Okay, and your test function is executed for the value admin. So this entire function that is doing the login functionality, right? The login functionality that this function is trying to do, it will do for the value admin. Once that is done, it either passes or fails. You'll see it in the output, passes or fails, right? Once that is done, then the second value, this guest, right? The second value guest is sent over here to this function, right? The second value guest is sent here, and again your login functionality is tested for which value? For another value called guest, right? So again, for that value, your login functionality is tested. So again, it will either pass or fail. Okay, and then again for the third value, that is this user, right? This user is automatically sent over here, right? Again, your test functionality is executed for the value user, and you see a test pass or a fail, right? So the point here is, now for each of these values, admin, guest, user, it is automatically being sent. So you don't have to manually come in and change. You don't have to do anything manually. Okay, because now your data provider is separate. This is your data provider, which has an array. It is providing the data one by one. It's like someone else is providing the data one by one. Okay, so it sends admin once and you do your testing for admin. It sends guest value, then you do the testing for guest, right? Then it sends the third one and you do it for that, right? One mistake I have made here is that this data provider is actually not here, right? You provide it here, right, in the test. Okay. Okay, so that is the thing, right? You have this data provider not inside the parameter, but in the test, right? When you annotate it as other test, you tell here, right? When you're annotating as other test, you tell here that the data provider is my data. Okay, so all you are trying to do is you're trying to tell Java that, hey, someone else is providing me the data, right? Who is that someone else? That someone else is this function called my data. So now you can segregate out all your data inside this function. Whatever data for which you want to work on this function, you segregate that out inside this function. Does that make sense, right? Does that make sense? Jackson, is it clear? Right? Jackson is perfectly clear, right? Awesome, awesome. Omori, is it clear now? Is it clear? And don't worry, even if it's not, right? Because you'll be doing each of this, right? You'll be doing each of this again, right? You'll be doing once you do hands-on, right? Because right now we've not even started with hands-on TestNG, right? So once you start with hands-on, you write some scripts, right? You do this, and once you practically do it, it'll start to make more sense, right? And that is the basic, like you did in Java, right? Practice. Okay, you need practice. Okay, Omri says right, perfect, right? Gives a thumbs up. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. Okay, so now let's get back to, so that is the data provider, right? That's the annotation data provider. Okay, look at here in this example again, right? So it's an annotation data provider. The entire thing is about this annotation, right? So any function you can annotate as data provider, and that function is then uh, a data provider for some other function. All right. And mind you that the D and P of this data provider will be capital, right? D is capital, P is capital. However, over here, right, when you're saying this data provider, it's not capital over here, right? D is small. Okay. So this is where you're saying that the data provider for this function is the name of the function inside inverted commas. All right. So that is about the data provider annotation. All right. Let's go back to our Codio. Right. Okay. So that is about the data provider, right? That's the data provider function, and how you can segregate out your data from your core functionality of testing, right? So data has been segregated, your logic, right? Your logic of testing is segregated. Okay. So tomorrow, if you want to keep adding more data, you add it in your data function, and your testing logic is not to be touched, right? So these are some features of TestNG, right? These are some annotations, right? Those are the features of TestNG. Other framework features, right? We've already discussed how TestNG annotations and data-driven features are advantageous over earlier unit test suites for complex automations. But there are other framework improvements as well, right? So these improvements that you saw, right? These annotations and these data-driven features, right? This data provider annotation, these are the improvements from the previous frameworks that you had, right? JUnit and this, right? Uh, Unit test, right? Unit test. Okay. So it's the these are the advantages of TestNG, right? That's the point. The advantage of TestNG over the previous frameworks, right? So in this section now we'll cover some more configuration and some more advantages, right? Those are TestNG's test configurations, the parallel execution, and the test ordering. Okay, so I'll quickly start with test ordering because that's the most logical part that you can understand just from this, right? So yeah, so you see how we did iterate test, right? So this is a function public void test one, right? It's a function. This is public void test two. This is public void test three. These are three functions we have, each annotated as iterate test, right? Iterate test, and iterate test. Okay. Now, if I want to give priorities, right? If I want to give priorities, so inside this is where we had provided data providers, right? So here, instead of providing data provider, you can give priorities also. I can see that this test is priority number one. This test is priority number two. This test is priority number three. So you can provide the priorities for each of the tests, that which test has to be executed first. Okay. Why? Because see here in Java, when we were doing basic Java programming, I told you everything is executed sequentially. Okay. But these test cases are not executed sequentially. There's no sequence over here. This is a test case independent of test case 2, right? So test 2 is independent of test 1, right? Test 3 is independent of test 2, right? Each of these three tests are independent, okay? And they're being executed, right? Anyone can finish first, anyone can finish last, right? But if you want to prioritize, right? If you want to prioritize, you can say that priority is 1, right? Priority is 1 for test 1, right? Priority is 2 for test 2. Priority is 3 for test 3. Okay, so this one will be executed first, then the second priority, then the third priority will be executed. So like that, you can initiate priority, you can set priorities based on your requirements or based on how your logic is built up, right? So you can have the priorities. All right. So that is test ordering, right? Test ordering priority is another advantage that TestNG offers over earlier unit testing suites. If multiple tests in a group are not ordered as TestNG, they can execute arbitrarily, which may or may not be the desired outcome, right? So if you have some pieces of test sequences that you want to execute in the order, right? For example, you want to log in to the website first, right? Then you want to add some product to the cart, right? That's the second test that you want to do. And the third is you want to check out, right? So these are three in sequence that you want to do. Okay, so if you don't provide the priorities, and let's say this is for the login part, and this is for adding to the cart, and this is for the checkout process. Okay, so these three are there. If you don't do the priority, right, if you don't do the priority, and if let's say the checkout process is executed first, right, if Java is executing this test first, because that's not in your control, right, that is executed faster, it'll have issues because you've not even logged into the website, right? You've not even logged into the website, and you don't have anything over there, and you're trying to check out, right? So these are kind of issues you can face, right? So when you have a set of sequence, you always use priorities, right? Priority one, then two, then three, so that you have the sequence in place. All right. And so it may or may not be the desired outcome. And in some cases, right, in some cases, you don't care about the order, right? You don't care about the order. Let's say you're trying to check for a button, right? Whether a button is particular working correctly or not, right? The functionality for button is working correctly or not. And let's say there are 5 different buttons, right? In a single web page, you have 5 different buttons, and each of those buttons you want to test whether they're working correctly or not. So you've created, or let's say there are 3 buttons, right? There are 3 buttons, and these 3 test cases have been created for those 3 buttons. Okay, now each of the button is independent, right? So you don't have to have any priority, they're all independent. Okay, so you don't need priorities over there, right? They're all independent, and whichever executes first or whichever executes last does not matter to you. Okay, so in that case you don't need priorities. Okay, so to guarantee a certain order execution, add a tag to the annotations like the code below, right? So you add this priority tag if you want to guarantee the set of execution, right? The set of uh, order of execution, right? So that is test ordering, right? That is test ordering. Okay, and other examples, right? Other advantages that you have is test configuration, right? JUnit requires, so JUnit was a different framework, right? Earlier, requires the use of test runner to execute test, right? So it used test runner to execute test, while TestNG can be executed using the Java virtual machine directly. Okay, so JUnit required test runners, but TestNG uses the JVM, right? That's the Java virtual machine. And TestNG uses XML file to configure the test suite, which is a collection of test cases. Okay, so XML is a markup language, right? It's an extensible markup language. It looks something like this, right? It looks something like this. It's if you've done HTML, right? It's similar to HTML, right? So this is where the this, let's say, the suite starts. This is where the suite ends, right? So this is a suite, right? It's an entire suite of test cases that we are trying to do, right? So the suite starts here, the suite ends here, right? How do you know it's ending? Because of this, right? This backslash that you see. Okay, so opening does not have the backslash, closing has the backslash, right? So here we don't have brackets, right? So this is the start of my suite, and this is the end of my suite. Okay, and then you have some space, right? You see there's a space here, so that means this is inside the suite, right? So this is the first test. Okay, what is the first test? This is a test, name is a snow package, and this is where the test is ending. Okay, and this test has these many classes, right? Has these many classes. So that is the way XML is structured, right? And this is another test, right? There's another test, name is regression, and this will have these many classes, right? This are the classes. You have this class and you have this class, right? So this is how you can specify, right? The point is you can configure your test, right? So this is called test configurations using the XML language, right? Don't worry much about this right now, but you'll slowly see, right? You'll slowly see when we'll do pom.xml, right? Other files, when we'll see, you'll understand more about XML. Okay, but right now, just it's an advantage, right? It's an advantage of TestNG. Why? Because this particular thing is there, right? So you can have your this test cases, right? You can have your test cases, you can configure them however you want, right? For example, in my this particular test, I want only these specific classes. I can write them over here, and I can tell Java that this test, right? This test will have only these classes. This particular test will have only these classes, right? So I can configure all those, right? A lot of configurations you can do using this XML markup language, right? That's the advantage. Okay, what some advantages of using the TestNG XML for the configuration? It allows dependency of one test method on another test method. It helps in prioritizing the test methods, right? It allows grouping of test methods into test groups. It supports the parameterization of test cases using the parameters annotations. It facilitates data-driven using the data provider annotation. It has different types of assertions that help in validating the expected results with the actual results. It has different types of HTML reports, extend reports for better and clear understanding. It has listeners that enable certain creating logs, right? It has listeners also to create logs if you want to debug something. Okay. It provides parallel executions of test methods, right? You want to execute something parallelly. It allows for parallel executions as well, right? That's another advantage of parallel execution in your TestNG, right? So parallel testing is the process where multiple tests are executed simultaneously in parallel, right? It's not happening sequentially in a thread, right? It's happening parallelly in simultaneously. Okay. So with respect to Selenium and TestNG, again, Selenium is another library that you'll be doing in the future lectures. And TestNG, it allows you to execute multiple tests on different browsers, right? For example, you want to do the same test, right? You want to do the same test on different browsers, okay? Or you want to do it on different devices, let's say one on laptop, one on mobile device, and or different environments, right? You want to do it in different places, so you can have these parallel executions, right? Parallel executions will do the same test in the parallel part. Okay, when this is not sure about what we just read, JVM for test ng are XML files. I'm not understanding this bit, right? Okay, no. When you see JVM is Java Virtual Machine, right? See, Java Virtual Machine is actually it's a virtual machine which helps run the Java code, right? It's a see, that's how Java is entirely built, right? So your JVM is the machine behind the scenes that is actually executing your Java code, right? It does everything for you, and that is why we say Java is platform independent, right? It's on platform independent. You write it here in a Mac, if you write it in a Windows, right? Linux, right? Whichever platform you write it, because the running is done on this Java virtual machine. It's a virtual machine which will run that Java code, and it knows how to run that. Okay, so TestNG, right? TestNG runs directly in the Java virtual machine. Okay, so TestNG, the framework that we are doing, right? So that's the advantage of TestNG. It runs directly in Java virtual machine. Okay. However, the previous one that we had, right? The previous framework that we had, that was JUnit, it used to run in Test Runner, right? So the Test Runner was a separate thing which would execute the test cases over there, right? So that was separate functionality. A test runner was required over there. Okay, but here you don't need the test runner, right? Because it's directly being run on JVM, right? That's a Java virtual machine. Okay. Valentina says we did not see JUnit in our lectures, right? Correct, Valentina. We did not see JUnit, right? JUnit is another framework, right? It's another framework, and like we saw in the beginning, right? It came in the beginning of our lecture. JUnit is the previous, right? And we are seeing how TestNG is the advantages of TestNG, right? The benefits of TestNG compared to the previous ones. Okay, and JUnit is a previous one, and not widely used now, right? Not widely used now. So this is just telling you how TestNG is better, right? And one of the advantages is that it's directly working on Java virtual machine. Okay, so they've done away with test runners, right? Earlier, you needed a test runner, a separate test runner to execute the test cases, but that's now done away with, right? Because that's not required. It directly is in TestNG, you directly run it in the JVM, right? That's a Java virtual machine. Okay, does that make sense? uh, when it says XML comes when, right? XML is separate, right? XML is separate. Okay, XML is separate. See, I'll show you quickly, right? I'll show you quickly. Let me go back to the Eclipse, right? I'll show you a quick example, right? For example, here, right? We'll do more of this, right? We'll do more of this. See, this is my entire project. Right now, again, we have not started with hands-on. Okay, so these things it's like additional, right? It's additional for you. So it's not something that you've done right now. Okay, so you see this XML files, right? Like pom.xml. Okay, so like this, you can create XML files inside of your inside of your project, right? So whatever project you have, you can create these XML files inside that, like here, right? What is this XML file telling me? It is telling me that this is a project, right? It's a project. Where does it start from? Here. Project starts from here. Project ends here, right? And these are the informations I'm giving Java. Okay. So I'm telling Java that the model version, right? The model version here is what? So separate it out, right? 1 second. The model version is 4.0.0, right? This is the value, right? It's the value. Model version is 4.0.0, and the group ID is this fifth test, right? That's the group ID. Okay. Artifact ID is this fifth test, right? That's the artifact ID. Okay. These are the values. Okay. Version is this particular 0.0.1 snapshot. Okay. Don't worry about what is this model version, group ID, artifact ID. Don't worry about that. The point is I can provide data in XML format, right? What does that mean? I can provide configurations, right? Or anything that I want to provide Java, like you do in HTML, right? So if you have done HTML, you must know that you create an HTML tag and you end it like this, right? And you create a body tag and you end it like this. Okay. You create a head tag and you end it, right? So like that, you have these tags. HTML opens here, ends here, right? Body opens here, body is ending over here, right? So these are the tags, right? These are tags that you have. Same thing here. We have these tags. Project, this is there, right? Model version, this is the value. Group ID, this is the value. Artifact ID, this is the value. Okay. The point is that we can use these XML files over here, right? We can use these XML files over here. And similarly, you can create an XML. Let me go back to our this, right? So similarly, you can create this XML file called TestNG, right? You can create this XML file and sorry, you can create this XML file called, let's say, testng.xml, right? You can create this file testng.xml and you can provide some information to Java here. What kind of informations? You can say that the entire suite is this, right? This is the entire suite. Okay. Now inside the suite, what all test do I have? I have this test one, right? This is test number one, and this is test number two, right? So this is all information you're providing to Java, right? Inside the first test, what kind of classes do I have? These are the classes I have, right? These are different classes that I'll have. Class number one is this. Name of the class is no package test, right? This is the name of my class, right? Here inside this test, the name is what? Regression one. That's the another test I'm trying to do. That's regression one, and inside this test, right, I have these classes. So these classes put together is my test regression one. Okay, so regression one is the name of my test. And what are the classes inside this? All these classes, this class and this class. Okay, the point is, don't worry about what are these inside it, right? Don't worry about the values here, right? The point is that I can give my configuration, right? I can give my configuration in any way to Java, right? Because TestNG allows this. TestNG is giving me this opportunity to tell Java that this is the configuration, right? This is my configuration. This is how my entire test structure looks like, right? This is my entire suite of testing. That's the entire suite of testing. Inside this, I have two tests. One is this test called no package. I have another test called regression one. Regression one has these two classes, right? Two class files I've created, right? And no package has just this one class, right? It has this just one class. All right. So like this, you can have these configurations, right? You can tell Java that these are my configurations, and you can tell Java, right? So that is a test configuration, which is an advantageous thing we have over JUnit, which was not there earlier in JUnit, but we have it in TestNG. That's the advantage over here. All right. Does that make sense, right? Does that make sense? Like, sorry, didn't get the connection between the two. So like setting to configure some special Java testing code. Also not only configuration, but real testing code. Not sure what difference from .java.xml. You have both test inside TestNG, but is there any difference in it? Correct. Yes, right. So there is a difference, right? There's a difference. So the thing is, this is not actually your Java code, right? This is not your Java code, right? This is just additional information, right? It's an information of how everything is put together. This is not your Java code, right? This is not your code. It's not the code of your testing. Okay, it's just the information you're providing to Java that this is how everything is structured. Okay, that this is the suit, right? This is the suit ending over here, and let's say I have this test, right? So I have this test called no package. Okay, and inside this I have just one class called no package test, right? So no package test is the name of my class. Okay, now you'll have an actual Java file, right? You'll have an actual Java file called no package test.java, right? That's a separate Java file, right? You'll have to have that. Okay, and inside that is where your test code is, right? So all your functions and all your test annotations, all your logic of your testing, all your data, everything is there inside that. Okay, here is just an configuration, right? That this is here, this is here. It's just a configuration of how everything is there, right? Does it make sense? Does it make sense? I say now it's clear, right? Awesome, awesome, right? Awesome, perfect, perfect, right? All right. So it's just like you're providing some extra notes, right? You're just providing extra notes that this is how everything is configured, right? It's like the user manual, right? When you get a new device or something, you have a user manual, right? Inside that user manual, you have everything, how the product is how the product is actually designed, right? That which button does what inside the product. Okay, same thing here, right? Same thing here. This is the manual, right? This is the user manual, and we're telling that we have two tests, right? This is a test, and this is a test. Okay, what kind of classes are there inside this test, what kind of classes are there inside this test, right? So that configuration, right, that you can do, and you can give to Java, which was not there earlier in JUnit, right? So that's the advantage. All right. Okay. And it says thanks a lot, right? Awesome, awesome, right? Perfect, perfect. And Seraphim has also shared a note, right? That's also great, right? Thank you, Seraphim. And yeah, Seraphim is always there, right? In case you have any questions or something, always feel free to reach out to Seraphim, right? We have this parallel execution, right? We talked about test ordering, we talked about, right? Okay, let's move on, right? Let's move on. Now see, IDEs, right? Integrated Development Environment. Okay, now what are IDEs? uh, See, IDE is a piece of software, right? It's a piece of software that is actually where you write your code, right? Where you write your code, and where you actually do your creating of your projects and everything. Okay, now there are some examples of IDEs. For example, Eclipse, right? Eclipse is what I showed you, right? That's an IDE. It's a development environment. Okay, that's the environment where you develop. Okay, so over there you can create your projects, right? You can write pieces of code, you can write your classes, right? And you can do everything. Okay, so Eclipse is one of the popular ones, right? Microsoft Visual Studio is very popular, right? Visual Studio is very popular, right? You have BlueJ, right? You have SlickEdit, NetBeans, right? So these are PyCharm, right? Is popular. Okay, so there are different types of IDs, right? They are essentially the master control for any coding project. At a minimum, the ID will feature a source code editor, right? That's the source code editor where I was writing the code, right? When you saw me in Eclipse, where I was writing the code, there was a source code editor, right? It has some built-in automation tools. It has some debugging features, right? Additionally, they might feature any necessary compilers and interpreters, as well as the ability to interface with version control systems, right? So it's basically the entire software, right? Does a lot of things, and the entire software is your IDE. Okay, Eclipse is the popular one that we'll be using, and also Visual Studio Code is very popular, right? But in this program, we'll be using Eclipse that you saw, and we'll also install, right? We'll also install Eclipse. Okay, for the purpose of Java-based projects, right? We focus primarily on three. One is IntelliJ, right? IntelliJ is also one popular IDE. Okay, essentially they are all similar, right? It's not like that if you're working in Eclipse and suddenly you go to IntelliJ IDEA, it's something entirely different, right? No, it's not like that, right? It's more or less same, right? On the left hand side, you have the panels for projects, you have a code editor, right? And the other functionalities and tools are almost similar. Okay, so IntelliJ IDEA is there, right? Eclipse is there, NetBeans is there. These are some popular ones. While experienced developers and teams might have specific needs and preferences between choosing IDs, for learning purpose, they are more or less the same, right? And one can easily learn the new IDs down the line. So you learn one, right? Let's say Eclipse you're doing in this program, you can easily learn another one later on, right? There's not much of a difference in the IDs. Okay, and some people have some companies, right? They have some specific preferences, so they might use, right? For example, let's say you using Eclipse and tomorrow you join a company which is using Visual Studio Code, right? So shifting, right, will not be difficult. Okay, it's same environment. All right, and then you have something known as build tools, right? You have something known as build tools. What are build tools? See, once I write my Java code, so IDE you saw, right? The Eclipse was the IDE, and inside that I write my piece of code. Okay, I write in the editor, I write my piece of code, and that's my Java code, right? Now behind the scenes, someone has to interpret that, right? So my Java code that I'm writing in plain English. Okay, but the computer does not understand English, right? It understands bits and zeros, right? So zeros and ones is what computer understands. Okay, so someone has to take that, compile it, right? And it has to create a version that the computer is able to understand. That is your build tool, right? It takes care of everything, right? It takes care of everything, and that is a build tool. Okay, so there are some five build tools, right? Top five build tools. One of them is known as Apache Ant. Okay, it's a popular open source build tool. lauded for its pure Java-based simplicity, but also capable of Java customization. The tool is platform agnostic and can be used with a wide array of IDEs. Because IDEs were your softwares, and the build tools are the ones behind them, which will actually compile your Java code and help you run it. Okay. Apache Maven, right? Maven is what we'll be using. Okay, we'll be using Maven, and similarly, it is also open source Java tool like ANT is owned by the Apache Software Foundation. However, it can manage several projects simultaneously, facilitating the entire project lifecycle. This makes it more ideal for larger projects than Ant. Okay, so that's one, right? But the learning curve for Maven is slower, right? So the learning curve is not that steep, right? It's easy to learn Maven. Okay, Gradle, on the other hand, is a more advanced, right? It's more advanced build tool and it's more powerful with domain-specific language based on Groovy or Kotlin, right? So this is mostly used in your Android applications, right? If you're developing Android, mostly you'll see Gradle over there. But for our cases, right, testing and software testing, we generally use Maven. Okay. And Gradle again has a steeper learning curve, but it is more powerful, right? And Maven is learning curve is not that steep, but it's more popular, right? Jenkins, right? Jenkins is also popular. Right? It's a very popular, but it's a CI/CD based tool with its own UI, right? It can be very complex to manage and configure. However, its unique pipeline features and reporting tools can be very useful to a team's workflow, right? So this Jenkins is very popular for CI/CD. CI/CD is what? Continuous integration and continuous development, right? So that's a entire pipeline is there for continuous integration and continuous development. That is where Jenkins is more popular. All right, CMake again, right? CMake is another build tool, right? Uses C++ along with Java to create the text files from which they are read to build the targets. Okay, so they basically build tools are what they will take your Java code, right? They'll take all your code and they will build the ultimate file to execute, right? That's the job of build tools. All right. For the most part, you will encounter mostly Gradle or Maven, right? These are two most popular ones. So mostly you'll encounter these Gradle or Maven, okay, when dealing with Java-based projects. And there are pros and cons for each, right? Like I told you, right? Pros of Maven is easier to learn, right? That's why we'll be dealing with Maven first in our Eclipse, right? When we use Eclipse. So Eclipse is the IDE, it's the software, and behind it, who is working? Maven, right? So we'll be working with Maven, uh, which will take all our Java code and compile it and do everything. That is Maven. Okay. Gradle, on the other hand, is more domain-specific language and offers more flexibility and has a lot of customization, but has a steeper learning curve, right? Like I told you, it has more documentation and it's more extensive than Maven. Okay, so these are the most powerful tools, right? The most popular tools, right? Maven and Gradle that we'll be using. And Gradle you'll mostly see in Android applications, and Maven is most widely used in your software testing, right? So that is it, right? Let's quickly stop here, right, for another 10 minutes break, and then let's come back. So these are the build tools, and those are the IDEs. Let's stop for a quick 10 minutes break, and let's come back after the break.
Thank you so much, Harshit. I hope you all enjoy your 10-minute break.
No worries, no worries. Thank you, Giovanna. And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you had a refreshing break. And let me quickly share the screen again. Okay. Now, for this part, right, for this part, we will be installing Eclipse. Okay. So you saw Eclipse as an IDE. You had different types of IDE. Eclipse was one, Visual Studio Code was one, right? Now, we'll be working on Eclipse. Okay. So in this part, we will install Eclipse, and so there are two things, right? So either you can install Eclipse in your local machine, in your laptops or PCs, or there is a virtual machine, right? There's a virtual machine also provided within Codio, right? So Codio provides you a virtual machine, and inside that virtual machine also you can use Eclipse, right? So that is also provided. So I'll show you both the steps, and if you prefer the installation in your local machine, that is recommended because it'll be much faster, right? The virtual machine is slightly slower, right? But it works, right? It works in case you're not able to install Eclipse. All right, so we'll go through the process of installation, right? I'll tell you, and you can do it right now with me also, and you can work along. I'll show you the steps, and you can work along with me also. All right. So the first thing is you visit eclipse.org, right? Visit this particular website, and we'll share the link in the live chat, right? Let me show you the link in the live chat also. Okay, so you can visit this website eclipse.org, right? And once you open it, you'll see this, right? This is your eclipse.org. Okay, so first look at the instructions, right? Before moving to eclipse.org, before navigating to a different page, just first look at your Zoom screen and look at the instructions, what you need to do. All right, and then go and then start clicking. All right, so this is eclipse.org, right? Once you reach this page, click on this download button over here, right? On the top right, you'll see download button. You click on that. Okay, you click on that, you will come to a page called downloads, and in this you scroll down slightly, you'll see this install your favorite desktop ID packages, right? You see this over here, and inside beside this you'll see this written download packages. Okay, so click on this download packages that you see here. Not right now, I'm telling you the instructions, and I'll repeat these instructions again, so don't worry. You click on those download packages, right? You'll come to another screen. You come to another screen, then scroll down. Okay, scroll down and you'll see this Eclipse ID for Java developers. Okay, so there are different versions, right? Eclipse ID for enterprise Java and web developers. There's one for Eclipse committers. There's one for Eclipse ID C, C++. None of those, right? You go for Eclipse ID for Java developers. Okay, this one. Okay, so you go for this one. Don't click, right? You don't have to click on this. You see on the right hand side here, you have different options. Okay, so let's say if you're on Windows, right? If you're on Windows, you can choose this, right? X8664. Okay, x8664 is generally for the Intel versions. If your processor Intel, okay, then x8664 is generally for the Intel versions. And if you're on Mac, right, if you're on Mac and you don't have the Intel version, right, in Mac, if you have M1, M2, M3, or any of those processors, right, then you use this, right, ARC64. Right, then you use this. Don't go for the x8664 part, right? Either of those work, right? Either of those works. It's just the performance thing, right? So this will be better. ARC64 is specially designed for Mac M1, M2, M3s, and for Intel's it is x8664, right? So that's more for Intel. Okay, so from this you can choose, right? And in case if you have Linux, right, you can choose any of these. If you have Linux, but mostly I think we use Windows and Mac. So they're the options, right? So again, right, I'll repeat these again, the entire step again. Okay, so the link that I've shared to you, right, link I've shared to you in the live chat, now you can open it, right? Click on that, click on the eclipse.org, right? Go to that link. At the top right, you'll see a download button, right? Click on the download button from the top right. You'll navigate to a new page. In that new page, you scroll down, you'll see a particular option called install your favorite desktop ID packages. Okay, within this also you have a drop down with download, right? You can use this also, but if you need a specific and more accurate one, you click on download packages. Okay, click on download packages here, and then you scroll down to Eclipse ID for Java developers. Beside that, you'll see the option for Windows and Mac, and within this you can choose. If you have Mac, choose ARC64. If you have Intel Windows, choose x8664. Okay, choose one of these. All right, and once you click on this, right, let's say I click on this x8664. It'll take you to a page, right? It'll take you to a page where you can simply click on download, right? Just click on this orange download button and your download should start. Okay, so that will start your download process. All right, give me a thumbs up if you were able to click on this and if you were able to start your download process. And Seraphim has shared some screenshots, right? Thank you, Seraphim, for those awesome screenshots. And Susan gives a thumbs up. Theodore gives a thumbs up, right? Perfect. Jumana has shared a set of instructions, right? Set of instructions. Thank you, Jumana. Thank you so much for that. And Jordan is typing, right? Let me see. Others follow along, right? This you can do later on also, right? If you don't have, if you're not able to follow through right now, you can go through this process later on also, right? In the Codio also, all the steps are provided to you. Step 1, step 2, step 3, all these steps with screenshots are provided to you in your Codio lesson. So you can follow it later on also. But I would recommend, right? I would recommend you can do it right now. And again, get along with me, right? Samson gives a thumbs up, right? Jordan gives a thumbs up. Omri gives a thumbs up, right? Great. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. Okay. So let the download begin, right? Let the download complete. Okay. Once the download is completed, then you need to install, right? You need to install. How do you install it? once you have the download, you just double click, right? You double click on the particular installer, and you just need to go through the instructions that come in your dialog box, right? Just click on next, 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 and that should show you your entire installation process. All right, so I'll wait, right? I'll wait for 2 minutes for you to do that, right? By the time that is being done, let's look at the step two, right? Step two is to install TestNG. Okay, so once your Eclipse is ready, then you install TestNG inside your Eclipse. Okay, so while your download is under process, right? While your download is under process, look at step two that I'm telling you here. Okay, once your Eclipse is ready, right? Once your Eclipse is ready, it should show you something like this, right? Like my Eclipse. Let me share the Eclipse screen again, right? Hold on. Okay, so it will show you this Eclipse screen, right? Once your download is completed and once you install it, after double clicking on the installer, right, you go next, next. Or let me wait, right? Let me wait for y'all. And for those who have already installed it, right, I'll repeat this process again. Okay, so once your Eclipse is open, right, your Eclipse will be open, it will be blank, right? Eclipse will be blank, right? None of these will be open, right? Let me close this. Okay, so everything will be closed. Let me close this. Okay, so it'll be blank for you like this, right? And none of this will be open, right? Everything will be closed, right? So everything will be blank for you. Okay, in the top right, you'll see this magnifying glass, right? It's a search button. Okay, so step two is to install TestNG. Okay, so install TestNG, you click on this magnifying glass, right? You click on this magnifying glass, and here you search in TestNG. Okay, you search TestNG over here. And no, sorry, here you search Eclipse Marketplace, right? You search Eclipse Marketplace over here. Okay, you see Eclipse Marketplace, you need to
Harshit,
click on this,
I'm sorry
right?
to interrupt. We cannot see your window, the smaller window that you're searching in. But
Ah,
they can
okay.
follow through this. The screenshots are provided in the Codio case. After you click on the magnifying glass, we cannot see that box, that dial. Okay.
Got it, right, got it. Let me see if there's a different screen share. Okay, now is it visible? Now can you see this Eclipse Marketplace?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. All right. Okay. So this Eclipse Marketplace is what you need to search for in that search box, right? And once you search for this, right? Once you search for this Eclipse Marketplace, inside this, you need to type in TestNG. Okay. You need to type in TestNG over here and click on this Go button that you see over here. You type in TestNG here, click on Go button over here, right? So this is the entire marketplace where you can add in a lot of things, right? So that's the entire marketplace for Eclipse. Okay, so Eclipse is your software, right? Eclipse is your entire IDE, it's your entire software, and here is your marketplace, and you just type in TestNG over there and you search for it, right? Just click on Go. Okay, and once you search, it'll take time, right? It'll take some time to check for TestNG. It'll search and it'll get you TestNG over here. Okay, so you see, I get it over here, right? TestNG for Eclipse. So this one is what I got. And here at the bottom right at the bottom right over here, you'll see a button, right? For me, it shows as installed. Okay, but for you, it'll show as install. Okay, because it's already installed for me, it shows me installed. But for you, it will show as install. Okay, and you need to click on that, right? You need to click on that, and TestNG for Eclipse will be installed in your Eclipse, right? It'll be installed, and you'll just have to restart Eclipse, right? You need to close Eclipse once and you just need to restart Eclipse. Okay, I'll tell you this entire process again, right? I'll tell you the entire process again. Let me see, is your Eclipse downloaded, and have you all like installed it, double clicked on Eclipse, and done with the installation process? Uh, Tell me in the live chat, right? Tell me in the live chat, installation done or download done, right? Download done or installation done. Okay, give me a thumbs up if download is done, and give me a smiley, right? Give me a smiley emoji if installation is completed. Okay, so it says installation done, right? Installation done. Awesome. Theodora says download is done, right? Awesome. Awesome. Theodora, it'll just take 10 seconds more, right? Just take 10 seconds more for the installation, right? Just double click on the downloaded file that you have, and just click on next, 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 and it'll install Eclipse in your machine. Okay. Valentina is giving a cat face, right, Valentina? I'm not sure if that's a smiley or it's a cat face. Okay, so let me know with text, right? So installation done. Oh, it's a smiley, right? So smiley. Okay, so awesome, awesome, right? So installation done, right? Installation done. Okay, awesome, awesome. All right. Installation of TestNG. Oh, Susan says installation of TestNG also done, right? Okay, awesome, right? Susan is ahead, right? Very ahead. All right, so TestNG also you've installed, right? Perfect, perfect. Others. Give me a thumbs up, right? If your download is complete. If your download is complete, give me a thumbs up. We'll wait, right? We'll wait. Okay, BB share I have here, right? Where do I click, right? Okay, I see Seraphim has already helped, right? Yeah. If you're facing any issues with the download or any steps, right? If you're facing any issues with that, just feel free to post a screenshot over here, right? In the live chat. And we have Seraphim who's there to help you, right? And I'll also see if we can debug that. And in case something is not working for you, right? Don't worry. You can always schedule a meeting with Seraphim later on, and you can get it resolved. But it will be great if you do it right now so that we are all on track, because this will be required in your next lesson, right? That's the hands-on test ng. Okay, and that you actually write the test ng scripts, and you actually work on that, and you can also practice, right? Within the weekend you can practice on creating this. Okay, Theodore says, where do I find the marketplace again, right? Awesome, Theodore. So that means you've installed Eclipse, right? Now, in your Eclipse, once you open Eclipse, at the top right, right? At the top right, you will see a magnifying glass, right? And the magnifying glass, you click on the magnifying glass, and then inside that, you type in Eclipse Marketplace. Okay. See, I'll show you again with the screenshots that we have, right? So go to the top right of your this, right? See here. Okay. Uh, this button, right? This button you see, if I just magnify this search button, right? At the top right, you'll see the search button. You need to click on that, and once you click on that, you will get this dialog box, right? Here you can type in Eclipse. Okay, just need to type in Eclipse here. You'll get Eclipse Marketplace. Okay, you need to click on that. All right, once you click on that, you will get an Eclipse Marketplace. Theodora says, got it, right? Awesome, awesome, Theodora. And inside Marketplace, you will get something like this, right? Here is where you need to type in TestNG, and you need to click on Go. Okay, so inside the marketplace, just type in TestNG here, and you need to click on Go, right? So that is what is required. All right. Okay. Others, have you all downloaded complete, installation complete? What is the status? Give me a smiley if your installation is complete, and give me a thumbs up if your download is complete. Valentina says, do we have to search TestNG in Marketplace every time we use Eclipse? No, 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 Valentina, no. No, just once, right? Just once. You install TestNG, because see, by default, Eclipse is the ID, right? It's the software, okay? And it does not come with TestNG, right? Because there are multiple different frameworks, and everything is there in Java, right? Now, what you need, right? What you need as a software tester, you need TestNG. So you install it in your Eclipse, right? And it's done, okay? Then it'll stay for you, okay? So you don't have to do it again and again. Okay, but it does not come by default with Eclipse, because let's say some developers, they don't want the TestNG framework, right? If I'm a developer, I don't want the testing framework, right? So I don't need it. So why should I install it with Eclipse, right? So that's why this marketplace is there. So whoever needs whatever frameworks or anything, right? They can keep adding those. All right. So that's the thing, right? When this is okay, right? Perfect. Awesome. 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 All right. Okay. So these are steps, right? These are steps. You click on TestNG, right? And you click on install, right? That this bottom right, you see this install button. You click on install, and in this, right, in the dialog box that you see, you can also click on this Maven integration, right? Make sure this Maven integration is also clicked, and just click confirm. Okay, and it'll install your TestNG, right? Just wait for a couple of minutes, and it'll install your TestNG. Okay, you might have to refresh, or you might have to close the Eclipse again, and might need to restart Eclipse for it to take effect. But yeah. Okay, so these are the steps, right? Once that is done, you're set, right? Once that is done, your TestNG is in place, your Eclipse is in place, your IDE is installed, and you're set, right? So that was the one scenario of how you can use it in your local machine, right? You download it, and you can use it in your local machine. Okay, Jixing says done, right? Awesome, awesome, Jixing, right? Well done, well done. Perfect, awesome. Okay, and any of y'all, if you're facing any issues, any troubles with downloading installation process, feel free to post in a live chat, right? And we'll see, I can debug it right now. And if not, right, if not, you can always connect with Seraphim later on, and have a meeting with him to resolve your installation issues. All right. So that was one process, right? Another process is using the Eclipse in the virtual machine. Okay. So Codio also provides you a virtual machine. And if you don't want to install it in your local machine, or if you don't have some space, right, there is lack of, all your spaces ran out in your machine, local machine. What you can do is you can use a virtual machine. Right, this virtual machine is provided inside Codio. Okay, so you can come here, right? You can come here and you can see this button, click here. Okay, so you can have this button here, right? You can click this. Okay, so once you click this, right, once you click this, I'll show you this, right? Once I click this, what happens is it'll say virtual machine is starting, right? Now virtual machine is like it's like a machine inside your machine, right? So it's a virtual machine, so it's like, let's say, a laptop inside this, right? So I have a different machine inside this, right? And it's virtual, it's not my machine, right? It's a virtual machine. Okay, so just give it a couple of minutes to start. And you see these two tabs here, right? So this is your virtual machine, and this is the guide. So anytime you come back to Codio and you want to use virtual machine and the instructions at the same time, you click on guide, goes back to your instructions. Okay, you click on VM, goes to your virtual machine. Okay, now you see this is my virtual machine, right? You see you have the start button. Now I have this Windows. Okay, so right now I'm running Mac, but the virtual machine is a separate machine altogether, right? So virtual. Okay, so inside that there is Windows over here, right? And you see Eclipse, it's already pre-installed for you over here. Right, so inside your virtual machine, Eclipse is already pre-installed, so you don't have to do install, right? Nothing, no process, right? Nothing has to be done. Okay, all you do is simply double click on this Eclipse, right? Double click on this Eclipse, and the Eclipse IDE will start for you, right? So you don't have to worry about anything. If your installation is not working or something is there, right? If you have some issues, if something is not working, don't worry, you can always use the virtual machine. Okay, come to virtual machine, everything is installed for you, everything is there. Just click on Eclipse, double click, and you click on launch over here, right? That's the workspace. Workspace is where all your projects and files will be stored. Okay, you click on this launch, and you can have your Eclipse set up for you, right? Everything is there, and you can practice your TestNG and everything over here in the virtual machine as well, right? That's another method to use. If you don't want to use it in your local machine, you have this virtual machine where you can come in, you can open Eclipse over here, right? You can click on launch, and you can always have this open, right? So this is the project explorer, and here then you can start creating file, and you can start creating new projects, right? You can click on new, and you can start creating. You, as you can see, it's a bit slower than your local machine, but it works, right? It works. It's not even that slow. It works, right? If you want to work, you can create a new Maven project, right? This is a Maven. We are working with Maven build, so Maven project. Okay, these steps, right? These steps of new, how to build a new Maven project and how to configure all that, that we'll do in our next lesson. That is the hands-on test ng. Okay, at this stage, the setup should be in place. Your Eclipse should be there, right? You should be able to work on that, and installation should be complete, TestNG should be complete. In the next lesson, we'll do this creation of a Maven project and create class and create files, create a project, and we'll do all that in our next lesson. Okay, however, I have this link also, right? I'll share this in your live chat, right? I'll send it to you in the live chat also. uh, 1 second. Okay, I'll send it by the end of the lesson, right? Because my live chat is in a different machine, right? So I'll send it to you by the end of the lesson. Okay, so that's another link that I have that you can look at into creating these steps, right? If you want to go ahead after this, right? If your installation, everything is there, you want to move ahead, right? You want to create a new Maven project, right? You want to start working with the projects, then you can use that. Okay, so this is the virtual machine, right? That's the another set of another method how you can use Eclipse, right? So that is the virtual machine part. Okay, so these are two different ways, right? And there's a warning: the VM will operate more slowly than a personal device, and the interface may be hard to see on small screens. So yeah, depends. The virtual machine might be slightly slower, right? But it's not a deal breaker, right? It's not a deal breaker if you're not able to install, or for any reason you don't want to work on a local machine. You can always use the virtual machine for practice, right? It's good for practice. Eclipse is already there, TestNG is there, everything is there. Just double click on Eclipse and start practicing over there. Okay, the main thing is you should practice, right? So both the processes are there: install in a local machine or use virtual machine, but do one of those, right? Uh, don't take the third approach of not doing the either of the two, right? So do one of those, right? Practice. Okay, so that's the thing. All right. Okay, so moving ahead, right? Let's move ahead, and let's move to a knowledge check of today. Okay, let me close this, right? Okay, so question number one, right? Let's move to the knowledge check. And well, it is slow, right? Yes, Valentina, it is, right? It is okay. It is, but it's not a deal breaker, right? It's not a deal breaker if you uh, if for some reason you're not able to install, right? But my first preference will be install it in your local machine, right? Because sooner or later you will have to, right? One day you will have to install ID if you're going into the software testing domain, and one of the days you will have to install it in your local machine, and you'll have to start using it. Okay, so better get used to it from this stage itself, right? It's a good idea. So my recommendation is take the first approach, right? Go to eclipse.org and download, install it, and install TestNG, get it from the marketplace and keep it set up. Okay, work on that. But in case for some reason that is not happening, virtual machine is also acceptable, right? It's not a deal breaker. Okay, it's no excuse for not practicing. Okay, so that's the thing. All right. Okay, so look at knowledge check, right? Question number one: if only one of the following types of testing is needed, which case would TestNG be least necessary? Okay, and which of these would TestNG be least necessary in an end-to-end test, in integration testing, in hybrid testing, or in unit testing? Omri says, please can you paste the link here in Slack? Omri, link of which one? Link of which one? Link of Eclipse. Eclipse I already shared, right? Seraphim, can you reshare the Eclipse link? Okay, when it says hybrid, right? Susan says unit, Theodore says unit. Unit is correct, right? Unit is correct. Hybrid is not correct because hybrid test ng is more necessary, right? In case of unit testing, when you're just doing for one particular unit, right? In case you're just doing for one particular unit, it's test ng is an overkill, right? It's like a more powerful weapon you're using just for a unit testing. Okay, so that's an overhead for it. Okay, so that's the thing, right? Question two: which of the following is not a before or after annotation? Okay, and which of these do you not have a before or after annotation? Okay, like before group, after group, right? Before method, after method, or before data provider, after data provider, before class, after class. Which of these does not have that, right? Before, after that annotation. Okay. Okay, Jackson says data provider. Valentina says testing is very flexible, can be used to cover wide range of test categories, unit, functional, end-to-end integration testing. No hybrid in here, right? Valentina, that is correct, right? That is correct. Okay, so it's used for wide range, right? Unit, functional, end-to-end integration. Hybrid also comes, right? Hybrid also comes. They might not have specifically mentioned it, but here the question is least necessary, right? The least necessary. For which of these is TestNG least necessary? TestNG can work for unit, right? For unit testing, you can have TestNG, but like I told you, it's an overkill, right? It's like an overkill in each of these. Hybrid could have multiple, right? Hybrid is an hybrid, okay? So it could have multiple of those. In that scenario, also TestNG is like appropriate, right? It's, if someone uses TestNG for that, it's appropriate, okay? But for unit testing, right? You just testing for one particular unit, it's an overkill, right? It's an overkill. So out of these four options, the least necessary is unit testing. Okay, hybrid is still appropriate, but for unit, it's the least necessary. Okay, and this is not sure, right? Yeah, it is, right, Valentina? It is, right? It works, right? It's not like it cannot work, right? It cannot work. It works, but it's an overkill. So out of these four, which is the least necessary, it'll be unit, right? It'll be unit because hybrid is comparatively, right? It's comparatively, okay? I can understand your confusion, but comparatively, hybrid will be more necessary, right? That it's better to use TestNG in the hybrid as compared to unit, right? That's the thing. All right. So here, yeah, data provider was correct, right? Data provider does not have before or after, right? It's just data provider as the annotation. And that is correct, right? Data provider is correct. Okay. When it says, did we see unit testing on TestNG? I don't know the difference. Valentina, we've not started, right? We've not started with hands-on TestNG yet, right? So it was only the theoretical part. I showed you the code and the examples because according to me, it will be easier for you to understand if you look at the code, right? As compared to just theory. And if the things are just listed down, it's better to look at the code and understand the concepts. But no, we've not started with the hands-on test ng, right? So no, nothing of that sort is done yet. All right. Okay. Question number three, right? Which of the following would not be a good case for parallel test execution? Okay. Different test environments when you're doing parallel execution, right? Parallel execution means execution are done parallelly. Okay. Different test environments, chained methods, multiple device types, or multiple browsers. Okay. And which of the following would not be a good case, right? Not a good case for parallel test execution. Okay. Okay. When it says how to difference unit end to end, etc., then, right? So these are, Valentina, these are different types of testing that you've done earlier, right? In your earlier theory, you've done these different types of testing. What is end to end testing? What is system testing, right? What is unit testing? And what is hybrid testing, right? We've done all those in our theoretical part in our earlier lessons, right? You need to revise that and go through that again. Okay. And so unit testing is you just take one unit, right? You just take one unit and you're just testing for that. Okay. So in that case, you don't need the test engine, the entire framework, right? So that is the least required in for that scenario. Okay. So that's why out of the four, unit testing was the least. Okay. And end to end is you check end to end testing for let's say one functionality, let's say the login functionality, right? So end to end is from the user interface all the way to the back end, and so end to end, right? That's the end to end. Okay. So that's end to end. And system testing is the entire system, right? Everything put together. So you remember integration was what? So you have one unit is specific, right? Do we discuss this? Units are separate. Okay. Integration is how those units are integrated. For example, let's say add to cart button, right? Add to cart button is you're adding to the cart, right? That's one unit. Okay. And the entire checkout process, right? That is another unit. Okay. Integration is how these two work in tandem together. Okay. From your, let's say, from your products, you add to cart and your checkout process, entire thing, right? That's its integration, how those two are integrated together. Okay. You look at the add to cart separately, that is unit. You look at the checkout process separately, that's unit. Okay. How they two are interconnected, that is integration, right? That is integration. Okay. And once you look at the entire system, right, that's the entire system together. Okay. So those were the things, right, that we had done earlier, right? You can go back to those revision parts of those things, right? So the thing is, out of these, right, out of these, unit testing is the thing in which TestNG is an overkill, right? So least necessary out of the four options that was given. All right. Question three, right? Question three, which of the following would not be a good case for parallel test execution, right? Okay. The answer is already given, right? Susan says change method, chain methods. BB says chain method. Jixing says chain method. Chain method is absolutely correct, right? That is absolutely correct. Why? Because chain methods is, this is a chain of methods, right? So that you cannot do parallelly. Okay. So there's a sequence, right? There's a sequence provided. So you cannot do it parallelly. So makes more sense, no sense. It's not good here, right? In chain methods to do parallel execution. Okay. So can you guess which Java command prints this message to the ID console system.out.print ln console.log message or print, right? Which of these will work correctly to print a message in the ID of the console, right? Out of these four messages, which one do you see is the correct one, right? Which of the options is correct? maybe says 2. Maybe 2 is not correct, right? 2 is console.log, right? 2 is console.log. Print ln is correct, right? Susan, print ln is correct. That is absolutely correct. If you get confused with print, right? See, there's a bracket here, right? There's a bracket here, and the parentheses bracket is already provided to you here, right? So therefore, it will be print ln because the bracket starts after print ln. Okay, and so that's why this print is not correct, right? This print ln is correct. All right. So after that, that is how we print a message in the output, right? In your console. Okay, so that's a print ln. That is absolutely correct. Okay, question number 5, right? I'll leave question number 5. Okay, I'll leave question number 5, right? This question number 5 you can do later on after covering your hands-on test ng, right? So after hands-on test ng, that is when you can cover question number 5. Okay, right now don't worry about that. Conclusion, right? Let's quickly look at conclusion. Since it's get right. Okay, don't worry, Susan. Right. Yeah, that is correct, but don't worry about that. Okay, key takeaways. TestNG is a widely prevalent Java-based testing framework that many companies use to run their automation suites, right? So that's our conclusion. We saw the TestNG framework and how companies use them to run their automation suites. TestNG has some key features over earlier unit testing frameworks, such as the ability to use annotations, right? We saw what annotations were. We saw what data providers are and how parallelized test, right? So these are the things that make it advantageous over the earlier unit testing frameworks. Okay, TestNG can be run from variety of IDEs and build tools often available at no cost. But in our case, in this program, we'll be using Eclipse and Maven as the build, right? Eclipse is the IDE and Maven will be the build that we'll be using. All right. Okay. So that was the end of the lesson, right? That's the end of the lesson. Now let's move to Kahoot, right? Let me quickly start Kahoot. All right. Uh, Introduction to TestNG, right? Let's start this. Host live. All right. Okay. Let it load, right? Let it load, and let's see. Okay, let's start. We'll share the link. We'll share the Kahoot link in the live chat, and the pin is here, right? This is the pin, 4559261. That's the pin for your Kahoot, and join in, right? Join in. Let's see how much you all have understood with this lesson, and it's great fun, right? It's great fun to revise what we've done so far. And another thing is it's always good to practice, right? It's always good to practice. Okay, the pin is shared in the live chat, right? Let me quickly reshare the screen with the sound, right? So the sound is also there. Okay. Okay, if the sound is too much, just let me know. Okay, others waiting for you all to join. Quickly join in. Okay, waiting for 10 seconds more, right? 10 more seconds. Join in, anyone. Okay, let's start, right? Okay, Kasi has joined in, right? Just last second. All right, okay, let's start, right? Let's start with Kahoot. And the question number 1, don't worry about question number 1, right? I'll skip question number 1 because it's we'll skip question number 1, right? So don't answer for question number 1, right? Don't look at question number 1, don't answer it, and we'll skip it, right? But the question is, what is most likely to be a plugin extension rather than this, right? And okay, no, do this question, right? Do this question. Sorry, I'm sorry, right? What is most likely to be a plugin extension rather than an out-of-the-box feature of an IDE like Eclipse? Okay, is it a build tool? Is it a code compiler? Is it a lint tool? Or is it the terminal? Okay, do this question, right? Do this question because they are all jumbled up. All right, so Okay, one of you all got correct, right? Lint tool is correct, right? Lint tool is a plugin extension, right? Which is not there by default in Eclipse. So lint tool is correct, right? Lint tool is not there by default. Build tool, right? Like Maven, you'll see when we do hands-on in Eclipse, right? You'll see build tool is there, right? Code compiler is there, which already compiles. The terminal is there where you have the output. Lint tool is something you don't have by default, right? It's an out-of-the-box feature of an ID, right? You can have it as a plugin. All right. Okay. I'll tell you the question that you need to skip, right? So don't worry about that question. Let me quickly go to the next one. All right. Let's look at the scoreboard, right? Okay, Valentina got it correct, right? And the lead. All right. Okay. Okay. Great shot, Valentina. Let's look at the next question. All right. Okay. Which annotation would you use to run a method before all test methods in the suite? Which annotation do you use to run a method before all test methods in a particular suite, right? You use either it before test, or you use either it before class, either it before method, or either it before suite. Which one do you use? Okay, that's absolutely correct, right? Atherate before suit is correct. Okay, a lot of y'all have got it incorrect, but it's atherate before suit, right? See, when you have the suit, you use before suit. Okay, and three have done before test. See, before test is for the test, right? But suit is the entire suit. Suit means the entire range of tests that are there in your suit. Okay, so one suit is like one project. Okay, you can imagine it as one project. Okay, that's the entire suit. Okay, and tests are specific tests that can be distributed within those. Okay, so either before test is for test and either before suit is for the suit, right? So that's correct. All right, let's look at the score. Valentina in the lead, right? Kasia second, close behind. All right, okay, awesome, right? Great. Okay, let's move to the next one, right? Let's quickly move to the next one. What is the main disadvantage of parallel test execution? Main disadvantage of parallel test execution: it simplifies test configuration. It may not handle dependencies between tests properly. It reduces the need for multiple test environments. It increases test efficiency. Main disadvantages. Disadvantage of parallel test execution. Great, right? All of you all got correct, right? Absolutely, right? That is correct. Okay, it may not handle dependencies between tests properly, right? Because if one of the test is dependent on the other, right? And you're running it in parallel, right? So it'll not handle it correctly, right? So absolutely, right? Well done. Okay, let's look at the score. And Valentina is in a good lead. Cassia is close behind. Inas and Theodora also falling behind, right? But far. Okay, but still you can catch up. And Valentina has highest chance streak of 3, right? Great job, Valentina. Well done. All right. Okay, let's move to the next question. And what should you do if you see squiggly red lines under rest assured and Eclipse, right? So the squiggly red line, don't worry about rest assured. It's that we talked about the squiggly red lines, right? In that case, you save the file and run the test again, or all of y'all have got it correct, right? Great, awesome, wonderful, right? So add the appropriate import statement for the particular thing, right? So you add the import statement. Excellent, right? Well done. That's well done. All right, all of y'all have got it correct. Let's look at the Valentina still in the lead, right? Awesome. And Cassia is trying to catch up, right? Cassia is trying to catch up. 500 points, right? 500 points difference. But yeah, Cassia, you can do it, right? You can still do it. Okay. And Theodora, great job catching up. Ines, well done. All right. Oh, Jomana is also in the game, right? Great. Awesome, Jomana. Well done. All right. Valentina has a streak with 4 correct answers in a row, right? Valentina, you are in a roll. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's move to the next question, right? Okay, which of the following is a testing category that TestNG supports, right? Okay, this one, just ignore this one, right? Let's skip this question. Okay, I'll skip this question, okay, because uh, according to me, all of these could be, right? So this is confusing, okay? All of these could have been. Okay, we'll skip this question. Let's move to the next one, all right? So scores are still the same. No, nothing, right? Let's look at the next question. What is the primary advantage of using Maven as a build tool, right? So Maven as the build tool, what is the primary advantage? Easier learning curve and larger support ecosystem. It's platform agnostic support. flexibility with the domain-specific knowledge, or it has unique CI/CD pipeline features. Which of these is the advantage of Maven as a build tool? Awesome, right? Okay, two of y'all got correct. Easier learning curve and larger support ecosystem, right? That is correct, right? I told you all, Maven has an easier learning curve, and Gradle has a more steep learning curve, right? That's the primary difference between Maven and Gradle. But yeah, so that is correct, right? Awesome. Okay, let's look at the scores. Valentina's still on a great streak, right? And great lead, right? Great lead. Valentina is far ahead, right? Kasia, you can still, right? Still try, right? You can still try and catch up. Couple of questions, right? Couple of questions is what will take to catch up, and hope that Valentina will get it incorrect. All right, Theodora is close behind, right? All right, okay, awesome, awesome. Let's look at the next question. In TestNG, which annotation will execute after all methods in the current class are finished? So after current class are finished, which test annotation will be done, right? Either it after class, either it after suit, either it after method, or either it after test. Which of this annotation will be execute after all the methods in the current class are finished? In the current class we're talking about, right? Great job, right? Most of y'all have got it correct. After class, right? That is absolutely correct, right? After class is the correct one. That is after class means once all the test methods in the current class are finished, then execute this particular method. Well done, right? Well done. Okay, Valentina still in the lead. Theodora was so fast, right? You've almost got it right. Great job. Okay, y'all also have to consider the speed, right? It's also about who clicks the correct answer faster. Okay, that also gives you points. Okay, so Valentina is still in the lead, but Theodora, well done, right? How you've climbed up. Great, great, great. Cassia is still close behind. Ines also close behind. Great. Jumana is also in the game, right? Awesome, awesome. All right. Okay, question number 8. Which build tool has a steeper learning curve but offers extensive flexibility with its domain-specific language? Steeper learning curve. Is it Apache Ant, Gradle, Apache Maven, Jenkins, right? Which of these has a steeper learning curve but offers an extensive flexibility with its domain-specific language? Great job, right? Yeah, most of y'all have got it correct, right? Gradle, right? Gradle is correct as it has a steeper learning curve and offers extensive flexibility with the domain-specific language, right? Absolutely correct, right? That's absolutely correct. Okay, great job, great job. All right, okay, let's look at the scores. Okay, Valentina is still in the lead, but Theodora is now on fire, right? Theodora has a streak of 3. Great, awesome, and close behind, right? The gap is closing. Gap is closing. All right, this is heating up. Ines is third, Kasia in fourth, and Jumana in fifth, right? All right, next question. What is the primary use of @data provider annotation in TestNG? What does @data provider do? To provide multiple data sets to a test method, to execute tests in parallel, to group test methods, or to configure test execution order? Which of these is the primary use for using the @data provider annotation, right? Which of these is we use for that? Okay, what is on? Great job, all of y'all have got it correct, right? Okay, to provide multiple data sets to a test method, right? That is what we discussed. Data provider is the annotation we use for a function which provides the data. So let's look at the scores, right? Oh, Theodora has crossed Valentina, and great job, right? Great job, Theodora. Valentina is second and Ines is third. Cassia is close behind, right? All right. Okay. So last question, right? Last question, and that will be the decider. Okay. On your toes, right? On your toes. And let's look at question number 10. Which tool is specifically known for providing a CI/CD interface? Okay. Is it Jenkins, NetBeans, and or Gradle? One of these is good for. Okay, why did it complete so fast? Oh, everyone got it correct. Oh, everyone got it correct so fast that okay, the timer also did not complete, right? All right, awesome, awesome. Okay, I was shocked, right? Why did the answer come up so fast without the timer completing? Great job, right? Well done, well done. Jenkins is absolutely the correct answer. And let's look at the final podium. And in third position, we have Enos, right? Great, great job. Well done. Second position, Valentina is second. Okay. And what a great overtake with 5,700 points. Theodora, well done. Congratulations. Congratulations. It was a race, right? What a race, right? What a race. Well done, Theodora. Congratulations. And yeah. Great job, right? Great job. Well done, y'all. And shows clearly that y'all have understood the concepts. And now it's good for you to practice. Okay, so go back and practice, revise. I'll share a link in the live chat with y'all in a minute. And do go through that also. Okay. With that, thank you all. Thank you all for joining. I'll stop here and back to you, Jumana.